If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 41. Meanwhile, over at the Azalea Gym. This was Bugsy's first time meeting Steven, and he was quite nervous. When Steven asked how to find that source of glow moss, Bugsy could only scratch his head, looking rather helpless. I don't know where that person is either. Apparently, they're somewhere near a village in the Johto region, and the package was sent from Blackthorn City. Steven was a bit speechless. But on second thought, he realized he sometimes acted the same way. For example, not long ago, when someone was trying to deliver a letter to him, they spent ages wandering all over the map trying to find him. Meanwhile, he had been in Granite Cave mining stones the entire time, completely unaware of anything going on outside. Back then he must have caused everyone quite a bit of trouble. And now, he was getting a taste of what it felt like to be looking for someone with no clue where they might be. Truly, times do change. I can understand that a craftsman might be out in the wild collecting rare materials, Steven said with a smile. I've done that myself in the past. Though he didn't manage to get the craftsman's address from Bugsy, at least he gained a new lead, Blackthorn City. If it was shipped by delivery, it must have been sent out from the Pokémon Center. As long as he could find the correct mail carrier Pokémon or the one responsible for deliveries, he could trace the sender's location. However, Steven didn't have much time. He had already spent several days investigating in the Johto region. He urgently needed to head to the Kanto region to attend the fossil exhibition at the Pewter City Museum of Science. At the same time, Steven never mentioned buying the Eviolite from Bugsy, he only held it in his hand and observed it for a moment. This really is an amazing and mysterious stone. Even though I'm not a Pokémon, holding it, I can still feel a curious energy. Really? Bugsy was astonished. Steven nodded and smiled at him. I often excavate various stones in the wild and in caves. Some of my Pokémon are rock type, so I'm very sensitive to stones. Bugsy thought for a moment. That craftsman told me that after his further polishing, this stone is better than a normal stone of the same kind. It can activate a Pokémon's potential for a longer time. I think that's what he meant. Better than the same type of stone. Steven immediately caught the unusual hint in that statement. If there's no comparison, you wouldn't say something like that. And if he's comparing them, that means the craftsman has seen a normal stone of this kind somewhere else in Eviolite that had already been used. So that's it. It appears that such stones might exist in other regions as well. And previously, he worked in the Sinnoh region, speaking of Sinnoh's famous excavation site, the underground. Steven mentally pieced things together and concluded that the Sinnoh underground might contain other Eviolite stones. This realization and speculation made him both excited and happy. But considering he was the Hone champion, if he spent too long in Sinnoh, it could look bad, and he wouldn't be able to handle any issues promptly. What a headache. Maybe he really should let Wallace take over the championship. But that guy said he wanted to participate in contests and didn't have time. Oh right, he also mentioned something about holding a Wallace Cup in Sinnoh. Why not just have him look for stones on Steven's behalf while he's there? Such a sincere request from a friend, how could Wallace possibly refuse? Steven decided that before heading off to other regions, he needed to make some proper arrangements for his champion duties. But seeing that the Hone Elite Four are all basically free spirits, he couldn't help having a bit of a headache. Why doesn't our region have someone who's serious about work, a glasses-wearing type who studies every day and eagerly does overtime? Thank you. I believe I've gained some useful information. Steven thanked Bugsy and handed the Eviolite back. Bugsy, a bit puzzled, was just about to speak when Steven abruptly proposed a battle. Hey! A battle with the champion. Bugsy was stunned. Although he had become the Johto region's gym leader at the youngest age ever, battling the champion was on another level entirely. However, Steven stated, I want to witness the power of the Eviolite firsthand. Please, have a Pokémon battle with me. At the same time, Steven glanced down at the online shop page displayed on his Pokejur. After a brief moment of thought, he decided to place an order. Perhaps these sculptures were also made from some special stone with some sort of special effect? Steven bought the Laren sculptures and immediately wiped out their entire stock. As for the shipping address. Sorry, Bugsy, but could I have you receive the delivery for me? Of course. Besides Steven, those professors who had been paying attention to the traveling workshop also noticed the new carvings on sale. However, most of them had no particular interest in sculptures. Stonecraft and woodcraft techniques weren't generally part of their research focus. Yet the item description mentioned these sculptures having special buffs, which did seem to break common sense and made the professors suspicious. Among them, Professor Elm noticed the Arceus sculpture and read the note about its effects. The stock showed 3 units available. It can make a Pokémon hatched from an egg grow stronger? How could a sculpture have that kind of ability? By the way, I've never seen the design of this Pokémon before. Is it from some other region? But then why is it labeled as an unknown Pokémon? Ah, it might just be the artist's original creation, right? Professor Elm pushed his glasses up. At first, he thought these supposed effects violated common sense and contradicted science. But soon, he recalled that all over the world, there are ruins where things that defy common sense and modern scientific theory are often unearthed. After all, common sense is simply a summary of current phenomena. Some things you won't believe exist until you see them with your own eyes. Besides, that sculptures depicted Pokémon was something he had never seen before. As a researcher specializing in Pokémon eggs, Professor Elm began to consider buying one of these sculptures. But when he saw the price, he couldn't help hesitating. Even as the leading professor in charge of Johto's research, spending 100,000 wasn't exactly pocket change. Should this count as a personal expense or come out of research funds? And he also worried that the cost-benefit ratio might not be ideal. The description said the sculpture was only about the size of one's palm. Hey! Why did the inventory just go down? While he was refreshing the page on his computer, Professor Elm suddenly saw the stock drop from 3 to 2. Someone bought one? Ugh, should I risk being cheated and give it a try? If it really has something to do with Pokémon egg groups, it would be extremely valuable research material. Oh! Now it's down to 1. Who's buying these? Gritting his teeth, Professor Elm finally clicked the purchase button. So this is that workshop, hey? I see something about stones related to evolution, but all I can find in the listings are sculptures. In the Sinnoh region's Sandgem town, within Rowan's research lab. Professor Rowan, who was older in appearance than even Professor Oak, white hair, a bushy white beard, and always wearing a white or brown overcoat over a blue vest and long-sleeve shirt, had just received word from Professor Oak. Hearing that there might be a strange stone connected to evolution, he paid close attention. After all, such a stone could be a major breakthrough for his research on Pokémon evolution. But after following the traveling workshop for a few days, there was no sign of the so-called evolution stone being restocked. Then, suddenly, the new products turned out to be sculptures. Even so, one particular Pokémon sculpture caught Professor Rowan's eye. He didn't recognize that Pokémon at all, but it felt very Sinnoh-esque. He could almost glimpse a bit of Dialga or Palkia in it. The stone carving was labeled, Unknown Pokémon. Just from the photos, it looks like something excavated straight out of ancient ruins. If it's a replica, the craftsmanship is unbelievably good, practically indistinguishable from an authentic relic. Unless, it really is genuine. Could the owner of this shop be a Tomb Raider? Professor Rowan couldn't help letting his imagination run wild. But because this mysterious Pokémon sculpture existed, he became intrigued. The sculpture also had a unique description saying it possessed a special function: it could enable a Pokémon to learn moves normally learned only after evolution. That was indeed strange. Of course, there are some very gifted Pokémon out there. Professor Rowan had studied them. Certain exceptionally talented Pokémon really can learn moves before they evolve. For instance, Riolu, which sometimes has a tiny chance to learn Aura Sphere even before evolution. Riolu, which looks like a small blue dog-like humanoid, is called the Emanation Pokémon. As its category suggests, it normally can't harness aura before evolving, it can only barely sense aura waves. Yet a rare, gifted Riolu can master aura abilities even before evolving. This phenomenon is one of the many miracles in the Pokémon world. What, precisely, distinguishes evolving Pokémon from their pre-evolved forms? And those Pokémon that don't evolve, are they perhaps already in a kind of complete form? Still, some Pokémon once believed to have no evolution suddenly got new evolutions when certain items appeared, like Electivire and Magmortar. That is precisely why Professor Rowan wanted to buy an Arceus sculpture. If its function were real, it would be a special item of great value to the study of evolution. Move teaching tools have existed since ancient times, so it wouldn't be unheard of. The technical machine, trademark, we have today is proof enough that technology can do amazing things. The inventory's down to 1? Who on earth is buying these things? Ah, never mind, they may be expensive, but I'm placing an order. 20,000. After purchasing, I should inform Cynthia. She's quite knowledgeable about these matters. Chapter 42. After purchasing the Archaea sculpture, Professor Rowan also placed an order for a slugma sculpture. According to its product description, the slugma sculpture can make the surrounding area warmer, essentially serving as a fireplace that doesn't require a flame. It sounded quite practical. It must have some kind of built-in heating device. But this effect does resemble slugma's natural trait. Wherever slugma gathers, the ground temperature rises. In colder regions, some people even raise slugma and let them move around inside a fireplace to heat their entire house. By the way, there's no direct shipping option. It has to go from Johto to Kanto, then from Kanto to Sinnoh. The shipping fee's kinda high. Professor Rowan pondered this while reviewing the other sculptures' feature descriptions. The slugma sculpture's function is heating. The Charizard sculpture's function is to make fire burn more fiercely. The Scyther sculpture can increase the cutting force. The Charmander sculpture can make the air scorching hot. The Dragonite sculpture prevents abnormal status more easily. The Zeta sculpture can foresee one event each day. The Snorlax sculpture's function is to calm external forces and soothe the mind. Calm external forces? What does that even mean? Ugh, no matter how you look at it, something's off. Could this store be a scam? If these items turn out worthless, I'm going to complain to Oak. He's the one who made me follow this weird shop. If my money is wasted, I'll blame him. That's a full 200,000. And there are Gengar and Laren sculptures. Wait, the Laren one is off the shelves? It says this product is no longer available, inventory is out. Sinnoh region, Battle Castle. A young man dressed in a butler's uniform complete with a standard tailcoat on top and purple trousers below, his hair slicked back in a rather odd style, was staring at the screen on his poke-jur. It's a very old-looking Snorlax statue. Supposedly, it can calm the mind somewhat. Could the sculptor be a person with psychic powers? This was Darich, the castle valet of the Battle Castle, one of the Sinnoh Battle Frontier facilities. He served as the attendant of the castle's true owner, the young lady Caitlin. That girl possessed extremely strong psychic powers, so formidable that whenever her emotions ran too high, her powers would go out of control and rampage. Because of that, she was prohibited from participating in battle. However, Caitlin had gradually realized her own immaturity and was determined to change herself. She'd been through a period of training and refinement and was about to depart on a journey to the faraway Unova region. Darich believed she would accomplish something extraordinary there. Perhaps in just a few months, he'd hear news of his mistress's meteoric rise in that land. With that in mind, Darich had been searching online for ways to help Lady Caitlin master her psychic power more quickly. While browsing on his poke-jur, he came across the traveling workshop. If this statue truly has the effect of soothing an agitated heart, it might also calm the rampaging psychic power. It could help Lady Caitlin gain better control of her abilities. I'll buy this statue as a parting gift for her. Johto region, Ekrutique City. Though this was recommended by Professor Elm. A strange workshop, a strange artisan, and strange yet powerful talismans. Morty examined the spiritual power radiating from the talismans. It was utterly different from the power he had cultivated himself. What an unusual kind of energy, like it comes from another world. Yes, it's like the power of the spirit realm. The person who made these talismans must be a formidable adept in spiritual training. Such an adept is one type of medium, someone who gains unique abilities through rigorous spiritual discipline. Morty prided himself on his clairvoyance, using his spiritual power to see what his clients wished to see no matter how far away, he could behold it. Morty was also a seeker of Ho-Oh. Originally, Professor Elm recommended this shop to him, hoping Morty would investigate the shop's items. That was a formal request. Yet after actually purchasing these talismans, Morty discovered that the difference between his spiritual power and the artisan's was quite large. It wasn't just the total amount of spiritual power but also the method of its use and its source that were different. My spiritual power comes from painstaking practice, but the artisan who made these talismans might have been born with this power. There really are people like that. Neither Morty nor other well-known spirit mediums like Phoebe of the Hone Elite Four, who gained her strong spiritual power by training at MT Pyre, had been born with such abilities. Some spiritual power users acquire their abilities after near-death experiences that allow them to see ghosts, essentially receiving a summons from the spirit world. Truly gifted psychics, those born with these abilities, are exceedingly rare, but when they do appear, they display extraordinary spiritual talent. Morty exhaled lightly. These talismans had already helped him immensely in his training. Even the cursed talismans he tested on Jengar were extremely potent. At the same time, the mediums, shrine maidens, and psychics gathered in Ecruteak Gym, people who sought to refine their ghostly or spiritual powers, were all full of praise for these talismans. Maybe I should invite the artisan to Ecruteak City. Morty contemplated that idea. Once it arose, he found it hard to suppress. But inviting someone over, would he ask them to share their spiritual insights, or craft some talismans on site? Either way, it might seem presumptuous. I need to prepare some gifts. Perhaps I can offer him my personal notes on spiritual training. Morty glanced at his Pokémon Misdreavus and Jengar, both of which seemed extremely fond of these talismans. These unique talismans enhanced their ghost-type energy, making them highly suitable for training ghost Pokémon. Furthermore, Jengar and the others sensed that the talismans contained some attribute energy from a Pokémon they'd never encountered before. Intrigued, Morty used his clairvoyance not to spy on the glow moss this time, but to search for that mysterious Pokémon. Eventually, Morty glimpsed a Pokémon shaped like a sword, an extremely lively one, which he had never seen before. In this vision, the Pokémon was very close to its trainer, they shared a strong bond. A powerful, naturally gifted spiritual energy. Right. If it's that person, maybe they can see Ho-Oh. Morty remembered the ancient legend of Ecruteak City. From time immemorial, people here had worshipped Pokémon as deities. And it was said that the legendary Pokémon would one day appear before a truly worthy trainer. So the legend goes. Morty had always believed in that beautiful myth. Since birth, he'd engaged in secret and demanding training to fulfill a fragment of that ancient legend. He once believed that if anyone could summon the legendary Pokémon to this land, it would be him. But despite all his effort, he still could not call forth Ho-Oh. Morty understood that he hadn't been chosen by the legendary Pokémon. Yet that didn't mean his path was closed off. Until he witnessed a radiant future, he would continue training. And this time, perhaps, a formidable trainer. This artisan with such a gifted spiritual talent, plus a unique ghost-type Pokémon. That sort of inborn power often comes with a certain destiny. That's typically how these things go. The more I think about it, the more excited I get. Chapter 43. I was planning to buy more cursed talismans this time. Geez, stop fighting me for the merch. Are all the people buying cursed talismans mediums or something? Unova region, Undella town. A woman with purple hair and dark skin, dressed in jeans, a work shirt, feather accessories, and various ancient pendants, was currently viewing Hikaru's store page. Seeing that the talismans were once again listed as unavailable, Rayford irritably scratched her head and turned her attention to the newly listed products. They were sculptures. A Jengar sculpture. It says it makes it easier to find items hidden in dark corners. Hey! This could be really useful for me. When I'm excavating ruins, some things are just hidden too well, it's a real pain. Jengar. Next to Rayford was the very Jengar that had once sent Hikaru a cursed email. It stared at the store page, pointing at the Jengar sculpture with a mischievous grin. You want this sculpture too, Jengar? Rayford gave a light laugh. Jengar. Jengar raised its arms and shook its plump body, showing just how eager it was to have it. All right, it just so happens this would help us out. Though if there were a sculpture that let you pass through walls, that'd be even better. Rayford let her imagination run wild for a moment but then shook her head to dismiss the idea. When I'm 2 archaeology rating, those maze-like walls are annoying, but that's part of the fun of exploring ruins. If there's no challenge, I won't feel as thrilled when I finally uncover ancient artifacts. Oh well, I heard rumors about some undersea ruins in Unova, but I haven't found a thing. Maybe they're just tall tales. I've still got those cleanse tags unused. Looks like I'll head back to Paldea. Unova hasn't exactly been peaceful lately, that plasma group is going around promoting their silly ideology. Speaking of which, if this person is a craftsperson, maybe they'd have some insight in exploring ruins. These faux ancient sculptures nearly fooled me at first glance. I actually thought they might be genuine relics, but then the page says they're replicas. Does an imitation of history count as part of history, too? Rayford found herself intrigued by Hikaru. If I order now and have it shipped to Paldea, by the time I get back, the sculptures should have arrived. Maybe this artisan can make me more special items in the future. I've also read in some ancient documents about these seal stakes. If I can find them or at least pass the info on, he might be very interested. Still, I need to gather more historical data. Those 4 Pokémon once considered treasures were passed around by humans, gradually accumulating curses and desires. This is an ancient Paldean legend about how these Pokémon were sealed away. What item was used for the sealing? If I could crack that mystery, then someday, I might get this craftsperson to help me. If I do find the locations of the treasures of ruin, I might just ask him to break the seals. Pondering all this, Rayfort changed her shipping address and placed an order for the Jengar sculpture. Kanto region, Caei Islands. In the Caei Islands, Lance, the dual champion of Kanto and Johto, former Dragon-type Elite Four member, and current League investigator, was having an informal match with Lorelei, the former Ice-type Elite Four. The outcome was Lance's victory. To outsiders, that might seem normal, since Lance was the champion and Lorelei was a former Elite Four member. But as far as Lorelei was concerned, things weren't so simple. Dragon types are typically weak to Ice-type moves, so despite Lance being the strongest trainer of the Indigo Plateau, he had often lost to Lorelei in their practice matches. Elite Four members spar with each other regularly to maintain top form. This time, though, things were different. Well, how about that? My Gyarados didn't go down even after your Lapras used Thunder, all thanks to the Focus Sash. That's the bond between me and my Dragon Pokémon. Lance was positively elated. After purchasing that peculiar item from some unknown artisan and doing a simple test to confirm it worked, he'd flown straight to the Caei Islands on his Dragonite to have this match. Lorelei, in order to protect her hometown, had resigned from her position at the Indigo Plateau and was replaced by a new Elite Four member. From Lance's perspective, now that Lorelei, his natural counter, was gone, and Red had also left the Indigo Plateau, Lance's champion title somehow felt undeserved. Just because the threat is gone doesn't mean the weakness has disappeared, he'd told himself. Dragon types are weak to ice. Gyarados can't handle electric attacks. Those two types were exactly Lorelei's specialties. Thank you, Lorelei. Now my dragon army no longer fears ice or electric type moves. Dragon types are the strongest. Strongest? It's clearly that weird tool making the difference, Lorelei muttered, massaging her temples. Lance laughed uproariously, no way. The artisan told me, as long as there's a strong bond between my Pokémon and me, we can withstand any attack. My Pokémon will never fall. That's our bond. A trainer without that bond might only survive one fatal hit by using the item, but if you're truly in sync with your Pokémon, you can endure more than once. Lance was in extremely high spirits, leaving Lorelei rather speechless. Finally, she asked, you managed to buy that odd item, so why can't I buy one too? Ugh, what are you so smug about? Anyway, it only worked 3 times. The first was clearly because of the item, the next 2 times were just luck. By the 4th attack, you went down, didn't you? Also, what's this store called? Hey, Lorelei, thinking of rejoining the league? The Elite Four slots are already full, Lance said, quite serious. If you really want to return, you'd have to defeat one of the current Elite Four. I'm not planning on going back. I'm just a regular Pokémon trainer now. Buying an item shouldn't be a big deal. Lorelei waved him off. The Caei Islands still need me. If Team Rocket shows up again, who's going to deal with them? Word is they haven't completely disbanded and are still active. That's true. Lance nodded, then recommended Hikaru's shop to her. It's this shop run by a certain artisan who sells amazing items. They say any tool he crafts gives unique enhancements to Pokémon and trainers. Lorelei raised an eyebrow. They say. Who exactly is they? A newly appointed Elite Four member who's also psychic. He said he bought a rare item from that place, a light clay turned into a light pot, which can power up psychic Pokémon and extend the duration of moves like Light Screen and Reflect. Right, let me check if the shop has restocked hey? Dragonite and Dratini sculptures. Lance's eyes lit up. Upon seeing the description, he immediately placed an order. Ha! Sculptures that can prevent abnormal status. Lorelei, your freezing specialty is done for. Meanwhile, my dragon army has never resorted to cheap tactics like inflicting status conditions. A true battle relies on raw power. Idiot! Lorelei rolled her eyes. I can just ask the artisan to custom make some sculptures for my Pokémon, right? They'd have their own special abilities, wouldn't they? I see in the item descriptions that every sculpture has its own effect, consistent with its type. If I purchase lapras, dugong, and cloister sculptures or buy some unique tools, you might be the one losing next time. At that, Lance momentarily had no retort. He just muttered, well, I'm sure that store will sell even more great stuff, and then I'll still win. Ignoring him, Lorelei sent an email to Hikaru. Just as she'd said, she had clearly seen how much Lance's new item had improved his performance. Naturally, she wanted something equally powerful. Paldea region, Artisan town. This work, it's practically avant-garde. A slender man with wisteria-colored curls, wearing a wine-red shirt, was browsing art pieces online when he came across Hikaru's shop. The ancient-style sculptures caught his eye immediately. This man was Brasus, the gym leader of Artisan town, also known for his skill in sculpture art. While he was getting all excited, the tall man beside him, who had blonde hair, a green coat, grey pants and a bright red bow tie, nodded in agreement. This was the dragon tamer Hassel. Indeed, Hassel's such masterful faux ancient workmanship is avant-garde art in its own right. Exactly. Retro-style art can transport people through time. That nostalgic atmosphere draws everyone in. Compared to modern-day chaos, the past feels simpler, more comforting. That illusion of the classic and eternal is the powerful charm of all things vintage. This shop is a treasure trove. Oh! There's a Dratini here. This Dratini, so avant-garde. I want to have an in-depth exchange with this craftsperson. No, this art master. A light seemed to shimmer in Hassel's eyes. There's an art exhibition later this year. I'd love to invite this artist to attend. My inspiration is surging. A retro style, like an ancient ruined sculpture, mysterious and wondrous. Brasus said, the Dragonite sculpture looks great, too. Plus, the listing says these sculptures have special effects. I can't help being curious. Could it be just a sales pitch? Well, either way, the price for such artwork is worth it. Anyway, shall we place an order? We'll get acquainted first, then invite him. Chapter 44. Meanwhile, after gathering enough wood, Hikaru turned his gaze toward the depths of the forest and ventured inside with Dowblade for a brief exploration. If I arrange the symbol plates to spell out Celebi's name, will it accelerate plant growth? The abilities of the symbol plates correspond to Pokémon, and it's said that forests where Celebi has appeared always flourish with dense vegetation. I should try it when I get back and see if it can speed up the growth of herbs and crops. Since it promotes tree growth, it must also enhance soil fertility. Milking legendary and mythical Pokémon for benefits? A little bit doesn't count as exploitation. As Hikaru explored the forest, he encountered various Pokémon, including the common Spinarak, Pidgey, and Caterpie. There were also Paras with mushrooms growing on their backs, Kautoni hanging from trees, and Kricketune perched on branches, producing xylophone-like sounds. Along the roadside, motionless Sunkern, clusters of Shishrumish, Furret standing on their tails, and Murkrow dozing off were visible. On the ground, Diglett peeked out of burrows, and a Croagunk stood at the roadside, staring at Hikaru. Hello, I'm just passing through. Hikaru greeted the Croagunk, which puffed up its cheeks and let out a low croaking sound while staring at him with dull eyes, its head slowly rotating like a machine. As Hikaru ventured deeper into the forest, he wondered if there might be different terrain ahead. If he kept going, he could follow the tree's guidance into the sacred forest of the Northwestern Lands, an ancient and perilous woodland. I remember a villager saying he once ventured inside with by-barrel to gather firewood but was attacked by a scyther. But since we're on a different path, I shouldn't have to worry about that. Recalling the villager's warning, Hikaru pressed on, primarily aiming to search for tough salt. And fortune favored the diligent soon. Hikaru discovered a pinkish mineral with properties almost identical to rock salt. Impurities in the salt veins caused the rock salt to appear pink or beet red, but due to the cover of trees and stones, it was difficult to spot. Rare material, tough salt. Description: a translucent mineral. Grass and rock-type Pokémon favor it, and it can attract them to its location. Acquired craft, lore food preparation. Gained knowledge, +1. Fast mining, +10% mining efficiency. If tough salt is considered rock salt, then it must be a crystallized form of surface rock salt. Hikaru started mining and soon filled a bag. Dowblade also packed a small bag, and as the wind whispered through the forest, the Pokémon nearby gradually disappeared as the mining progressed. Come to think of it, none of the Pokémon I encountered were particularly strong and I haven't seen any Oddish. Oddish was practically ubiquitous in the Pokémon world, being one of the most fundamental and essential Pokémon in any ecosystem. Yet, Hikaru hadn't seen a single one along his journey. Unluckily, he also hadn't found any fruit-bearing trees producing apricorns. It seemed that this area wasn't suitable for apricorn growth, or perhaps they had already been eaten by Pokémon. Even land without soft soil could sustain apricorn trees, though they would grow more slowly and bear fewer fruits. Crackle! Hikaru heard a strange noise. Had he entered Scyther's territory? No, there were no signs of slashing. It was said that Scyther would cut down trees to hone their scythes. Soon, Hikaru stumbled upon something remarkable: apricorns. A nearby apricorn tree bore dark-colored fruits, standing alone in a small grassy clearing. The ground slightly bulged like a miniature platform, and there was a noticeable gap between the tree and its surroundings. The presence of an apricorn tree indicated that the soil here was highly fertile. A round, apricorn-like Pokémon rolled into view. Hisuivolturb. Hikaru hadn't expected to see one so soon. However, after hiding behind a tree and observing for a while, he didn't spot any other Volturb or the large Hisuian electrode. The Hisuian Volturb let out a gleeful giggle, then shot a bunch of electrically charged seeds from its head before rolling in place a few times and using rollout. The attack struck the apricorn tree, knocking several dark apricorns onto the seeds below. The Hisuian Volturb then cackled and rolled away. So it just came here to crash into things? That felt strangely mischievous. Wait, maybe this is a form of sowing. It's said that Hisuian Volturb's composition is similar to apricorns, and they spread seeds through the holes in their heads. Perhaps, at some point, these seeds fuse with the apricorns and turn into something like an egg. Pokémon eggs always appear suddenly, without any clear signs. To this day, no one has witnessed the exact moment an egg comes into existence. But not all Pokémon need eggs to develop. For example, Exeggutor, if its faces fall off, they become its pre-evolution, Exegcute. I've just witnessed something incredibly rare. This could be how Hisuian Volturb reproduces through the fusion of apricorns and seeds, much like Exeggutor and Exegcute. One day, these apricorns might turn into Pokémon. After the Hisuian Volturb rolled away, Hikaru approached the apricorn tree and gathered all the fallen apricorns and seeds. Rare material, black apricorn. Description: a black-colored apricorn with an indescribable fragrance. Used as a crafting material for Pokeballs. Some Pokémon enjoy its flesh, consuming the interior while leaving the tough outer shell. Acquired craft, +1. Apricorn processing craft, B+. In ancient times, artisans would hollow out and fire apricorns, inserting specialized Pokémon catching nets to craft Pokeballs. Apricorn-made Pokeballs typically possess unique properties. Missing requirement: net weaving craft. Can be crafted: Hisui Pokeball, requires jade, scrap iron, brown apricorn, dot. Rare material: Volturb seed, from Hisuian Volturb, dot. Description: seeds dispersed by Hisuian Volturb. They seem to parasitize apricorns and, when gathered in large quantities, generate electricity, functioning as natural batteries. Gained knowledge, +1. Seed mutation: crops and apricorn trees planted by you have a 5% chance to mutate. So, they weren't electric seeds but rather a rare Pokémon material. Since Hisuian Pokémon are scarce, their seeds are considered rare materials. However, when they are ejected, they resemble electric seeds, crackling with electricity. Most of the mature apricorns had been knocked down by Hisuian Volturb, while the unripe ones remained on the tree. It was known that excessive harvesting could kill an apricorn tree. The ground was also littered with many long rotten apricorns, suggesting that Hisuian Volturb's sowing process was not always successful. Even though the sacred lands have a climate similar to Hisui, this isn't actually Hisui. That's likely why Hisuian Pokémon struggle to thrive here. They're constantly searching for apricorns to sustain their population. And since Hisuian Volturb cackles and discharges electricity so often, it must be why other Pokémon have fled. Its presence around the apricorn tree probably scared them off. When it gets excited, it releases accumulated electricity all at once through its head, shocking everything nearby. In ancient villages, it was said that people would seal its wooden head openings before driving it away. Recalling this amusing Pokédex entry from when he played the games, Hikaru couldn't help but chuckle. It rolled off west-northwest, towards the area where Petalil reside. Having gathered plenty of materials, Hikaru and Dowblade left, ensuring to mark their path on nearby trees. However, Hikaru pondered aloud, what if the trees recover quickly, or if a grass-type Pokémon passes by and restores them? Dowblade thought for a moment before spotting some rocks nearby. The two blades immediately went to work, slicing and carving a crude yet distinctive stone marker. Yo! It might have been shoddy craftsmanship, but at least it was unique. No way they'd lose their way now. As they departed, the surrounding bushes rustled. A small, turtle-like Pokémon peeked out. A special sprout grew from its head, and upon seeing that both Voltorb and Hikaru had left, it let out a sigh of relief. Turtwig. The Turtwig carefully surveyed the area. After confirming that no intruders remained, it emerged from the bushes. Strange plants grew atop the soil-covered shell on its back, with particularly eye-catching patches of red. Powerful herbs and nature mints. It circled behind the apricorn tree, quickly dug a small hole, and nestled inside, raising its leafy sprout as it used synthesis. Blending in with the fertile soil, Turtwig nurtured the plants on its back and settled in for a restful nap. But, this area was frequently visited by Voltorb. Turtwig sighed. Maybe it was time to find a new home. The forest had become so chaotic lately. Scyther, Ursaring, shadowy ghosts, rolling electric balls, and that strange rock-digging giant. She. A peculiar, ethereal giggle echoed in Turtwig's ears. It immediately jolted awake, glancing around nervously. A grass-green Pokémon had materialized beside it, startling the little turtle. Turtwig had never seen such a Pokémon before. Was it after the plants on its back? The green Pokémon murmured softly, then pointed in Hikaru's direction. Turtwig hesitated, glancing that way before shaking its head. If it lived among humans, they'd pluck all the plants off its back. The green Pokémon simply shook its head, indicating that it had seen plenty of thriving plants in that human's land. The environment there was brimming with life. Chapter 45. After carrying the wood back to the workshop, Hikaru noticed that over 10 new orders had appeared on his computer. Even the entire stock of sculptures had been completely sold out, instantly lifting his spirits. Not only that, but multiple customers had placed requests for custom sculptures. Avant-garde art, Gible Senpai, Snowy Doll, Pokémon Observer. These IDs are quite unique. They want sculptures of Sudowoodo, Gible, Lapras, Cloyster, Dugong, Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle. In that case, the remaining ruin stones won't be enough. I'll have to look for more ruins. Everything's moving in a good direction. Thanks, Bugsy. This must be your doing. Having a gym leader as a customer really makes things easier. Regardless of whether it was intentional promotion or passive word of mouth, the products were now selling well, and sales continued to rise. However, sculptures were fragile goods. Still, even if damaged, Hikaru's sculptures retained their effects unless they were completely shattered into powder or had their heads broken off to the point where they no longer resembled Pokémon. Losing a hand or a tail. Minor injuries, nothing fatal. It would just make them look a little ugly. Hikaru had already tested this by intentionally breaking one sculpture. Fortunately, the ruined stone parts remained reusable, meaning only ordinary stone materials were lost in the process. Before shipping, Hikaru ensured proper protective measures were in place. Some sculptures were carved in separate parts and then assembled, making transportation easier and reducing damage rates. For shipping, the best approach was to fill the crates with foam padding and cotton, ensuring stability during transport. Thus, Hikaru applied for large item shipping. While a single sculpture was a small item, combined together, they formed a large shipment. However, he didn't have foam padding or cotton at hand, so he needed to buy them first before proceeding with packaging. This would also streamline his future shipping processes. Charizard has work to do. The delivery locations are New Bark Town, Sandgem Town, Sinnoh's Battle Frontier, Seven Island, Azalea Town. Oh, there's also Deep Pot Town. Is that an order from the Paldea region? A wild customer appeared. After contacting the Pokémon Center in Smoky Ink City, Hikaru and Dowblade went to process the wood they had brought back. Dowblade once again unleashed a double night slash, swiftly cutting the wood into neatly stacked firewood. The logs were moved into the cabin, stacked in the corner and warehouse. During this process, Petalil came over to help. Hikaru was surprised to find that, despite her small frame, she possessed incredible strength. She easily pushed logs with her head, though the leaves on her head were pressed down, they quickly bounced back once she let go of the wood. Petite Petalil lifted her tiny skirt proudly, expressing that ever since her last prayer, she had felt much stronger. Her increased attack 4 had also boosted her physical strength. By the time they finished processing a portion of the firewood, the sky had darkened. Seeing that there was still a fair amount left on the cart, Hikaru decided to turn the rest into charcoal. Making charcoal was simple, but the simpler something seemed, the harder it was to perfect. The difference between high-quality and low-quality charcoal was obvious at a glance, so Hikaru needed to prepare thoroughly. While he could probably find some charcoal in the village, it wouldn't necessarily meet his standards. And regular charcoal wasn't exactly a rare material, it was just a common fuel source. Since it was already late, he would have to wait until tomorrow to work on it. Altering the symbol plate summoning Celebi? That night, in his workshop, Hikaru adjusted the wording on the symbol plate to Celebi. Immediately, a mysterious sensation filled the room. It was as if the workshop itself had come alive. This vibrant life energy spread outward, visibly affecting the surrounding plants. Hikaru stepped outside and was stunned to find that the biggest changes had occurred not in the herbs or crops, but in the fruit trees. Previously, the fruit trees had only just begun to sprout tiny buds, but merely altering the symbol plate had caused them to grow visibly taller. Skipping growth stages? In the games, fruit trees normally go through 7 stages: planting, sprouting, growing, rising, budding, blooming, and fruiting. In a warm and humid region like Hone, the entire process only takes 5 stages. But now, the trees have skipped straight from sprouting to growing. So that's how it works. The effect of Celebi's name is a growth stage jump. Hikaru was overjoyed. Checking the herbs and crops, he found that they had also advanced by an entire growth stage. Particularly the tumbling beans, which had already grown nearly half a meter tall and needed a trellis. This was incredibly useful. It greatly reduced plant growth time. Petalil stared in disbelief at the scene before her. She had no idea what Hikaru had done, but the surrounding plants had suddenly skipped an entire growth stage. Her little brain simply couldn't comprehend what had just happened. Meanwhile, Blade floated out proudly. See? This is the power of special artifacts. And that strange symbol plate? Yeah, I helped craft it. This wasn't an exaggeration, it was an undeniable achievement. Petalil was shocked at first but then happily shook the leaves on her head. However, as she thought about something, her joy faded into disappointment. If this kind of power exists, then my help in tending to the land isn't needed at all. If the farm could flourish without her, what would happen to her work? And the rewards she was supposed to receive? Yo! Blade noticed her distress and patted her leaves with both ribbons before turning to Hikaru. The power of the symbol plate is only temporary, Hikaru reassured her. If I change the engraving, this ability will disappear. A true master of cultivation doesn't rely on artifacts but can grow strong and healthy plants naturally. Hikaru knelt down and gently stroked Petalil's leaves. You don't have to worry. Just keep doing your usual work. Like I said, the plate is just an aid, not the core of our farming efforts. The knowledge you gain from hands-on experience is the key to true growth. Even if we end this season's planting now, there's always the next season, and the one after that. No power is unlimited. Hearing this, Petalil's mood lifted. She bounced happily and hugged Hikaru's hand, feeling much better. These next few days are going to be busy. Let's all work hard together. With a joyful heart, Hikaru returned to his workshop, while Blade and Petalil followed him inside. Petalil still preferred staying in the soil. Over the past couple of days, as the surrounding herbs, crops, and fruit trees continued to sprout and grow, the land had become even more vibrant, especially after today's event. As the land settled into peaceful silence and everyone drifted off to sleep, a peculiar Pokémon descended from the rooftop, landing in the herb field. It gestured towards the forest, calling forth a Turtwig that cautiously emerged. Turtwig was amazed by the rich life energy in this place. Spotting Petalil sleeping nearby, it beamed with excitement. This place was incredible. The green Pokémon proudly puffed out its chest. See? I wasn't lying. This land is truly amazing. I'm the Forest Guardian, I don't deceive Pokémon. If you're still worried about being discovered, you can come here at night to soak in the soil. Turtwig hesitated, feeling a little guilty. Sneaking onto someone else's land felt wrong, but if it got caught, all the plants on its back would be plucked clean. Maybe, it should just visit at night and leave before dawn? Had Hikaru woken up at that moment, he would have discovered the Pokémon leading Turtwig, the mythical Pokémon from Johto, the Forest Guardian, Celebi. Chapter 46. Wait, why did all the crops suddenly mature overnight? The next morning, when Hikaru woke up, he was greeted by a confused Petalil standing in the middle of the field. All the plants they had cultivated had reached full maturity and were ready for harvest. Hikaru even thought for a moment that he had overslept for an entire month. Petalil has completed a crafting task. Learned the move, Pollen Puff. Petalil has gained knowledge, +1. Harvest season, by cultivating various crops, Petalil's overall stats will grow more easily. Reading the notification, Hikaru glanced at Petalil. All stats would now be easier to grow? That was quite an impressive result, but it was likely linked to this strange phenomenon. However, Petalil was still caught up in excitement, seemingly unaware that she had undergone a significant change. Looking around at the mature crops, Hikaru's gaze eventually fell on a small pit in the soil, one that looked like it had been dug up and then refilled. Petalil, did you dig this hole? Petalil tilted her head in confusion. Petty. Hey, not you. Then. Just as Hikaru was wondering about it, he suddenly heard a cheerful voice. She. On the roof of the workshop, a light green Pokémon sat happily, swinging its small feet and gently shaking its head as it watched Hikaru and his two Pokémon step out of the wooden house. Hikaru couldn't believe his eyes. It was Celebi, the guardian deity of the forest. I see, so that's the reason. Hikaru muttered repeatedly. Celebi stood up on the roof, flapped its tiny wings, and gracefully flew toward them, greeting Petalil and Dowblade. She. Yo. Petty. Petalil gazed at Celebi with admiration. Was this mysterious Pokémon responsible for making all the plants grow overnight? When would she be able to do the same? Meanwhile, both of Dowblade's eyes were fixated on Celebi, as if it had just thought of something. Yo. Right. This guy was definitely from the forest. Hey, if Celebi's around, then preserving the forest is unnecessary, right? Just chop down trees freely, and they'll grow back the next day. This ability was way too convenient. Dowblade failed to realize that, despite being a sword two swords, it had completely adopted the perspective of a lumberjack. The symbol slate can establish a connection with corresponding Pokémon, Hikaru recalled, repeatedly mulling over the sentence. At that moment, Celebi suddenly flew back to the roof. Then, it returned holding a wooden carving, looking very excited. She. Hikaru was surprised before quickly understanding, you like the carvings I made? Celebi nodded with a smile. She. Then, it extended a tiny finger, pointing toward the depths of the forest before circling around Hikaru, signaling for him to follow. Celebi. Shrine. Forest depths. Carving. A few keywords connected in Hikaru's mind, and he seemed to grasp the answer. Meanwhile, Dowblade had already begun chattering, acting as a translator. I see. Celebi is saying that there's an old shrine in the forest that needs repair, and it wants me to restore it using my carving skills. And it specifically needs ancient carving techniques, correct? Hikaru understood now. So Celebi wanted him to help restore the shrine. Celebi's shrines existed in many forests. It seemed that in ancient times, thousands of years ago, people across various regions worshipped Celebi. In the games, Celebi's shrines were even significant locations for time travel. And speaking of Celebi's most famous shrine, that would undoubtedly be Ilex Forest in the Johto region. Originally, Hikaru had planned to work on charcoal burning today. However, since all the herbs and crops had ripened overnight, they had to be harvested as soon as possible. Celebi seemed to realize this as well and smiled awkwardly. It appeared to have disrupted Hikaru's plans. It's fine. Let's focus on harvesting these herbs and crops today. I should be thanking you otherwise, it would have taken me many days to collect all of these. Now my stock is fully replenished. Hikaru didn't mind at all and even completely forgot about the small pit. He then assured Celebi. Once I'm done here, I'll help you repair the shrine. At the same time, he pondered over the meaning of the symbol slate. Initially, he understood that arranging the characters actively could establish a connection with corresponding Pokémon, but there was a second part to the description. Some Pokémon may also take the initiative to establish a connection with the symbol slate. Did that mean that, sometimes, the slate would form words on its own, and those Pokémon like Celebi would be drawn to him? This connection might not be telepathy or direct communication, but more of a vague prophecy. When Pokémon related to him were about to appear in the future, the slate would arrange its characters accordingly. That was his theory. Friend. All life meets and creates new things. For some reason, Hikaru thought of the inscription on the Salation ruins in the Sinnoh region. Yes. The symbol slate used unknown characters, and the slab in Salation ruins was similar. It even contained that very phrase, which was also Cynthia's favorite motto. Looking ahead, Celebi had quickly bonded with Petilil and Dowblade, and the three Pokémon were now working together to gather the herbs, crops, and berries. Celebi plucked a berry and handed it to Hikaru, expressing its willingness to help. Thank you. Hikaru reached out but hesitated for a moment. Sensing what he wanted to do, Celebi did not retreat. Instead, it proactively grasped his hand. Celebi's touch was like a soft leaf so delicate that Hikaru momentarily lost himself in the sensation. His mind felt at peace, as if a gentle breeze rustled through him, accompanied by a faint, chiming sound. Healing bell. Hikaru snapped back to reality and saw Celebi smiling at him. It confirmed that Celebi had just used the move. Healing bell, a soothing chime that cured all status conditions of allied Pokémon. With the help of Celebi, Petilil, and Dowblade, Hikaru quickly gathered all the herbs, crops, and berries and stored them in the workshop. Since this marked the end of the cultivation process, Hikaru gained another point of knowledge, while Petilil and Dowblade received experience and growth. Harvesting task completed. Gained knowledge, 1. Better harvest, herbs will have stronger effects, crops will taste better, and berries will provide more energy. Dowblade has gained experience and growth through work. Petilil has gained experience and growth through work. Unexpectedly, Hikaru also saw information about Celebi. Celebi has gained experience and growth through work. Even external Pokémon could grow by actively participating in work just like the Dugtrio before. Hikaru's expression became somewhat amused. He had previously thought about farming experience from a mythical Pokémon. He never expected it to actually work. At the same time, since he had successfully cultivated under permafrost farming techniques, Hikaru gained a clue to a new material. Rare material, wood from Ilex Forest. Location, Ilex Forest. Related craft, unique charcoal burning technique. Celebi sensed an unusual burst of grass-type energy emanating from the harvested herbs and crops, slowly gathering into its body. Did it just get stronger? Strange things always happened unexpectedly. Celebi knew it must have been because of this remarkable human. After finishing the harvest, Hikaru returned to the cabin, picked up a stone block, and began carving. This time, he was, of course, sculpting Celebi. As Hikaru worked, all three Pokémon gathered around him curiously. Celebi sat on the table, Petilil tilted her head in fascination, while Dowblade was boasting about Hikaru's carving skills, both swords competing over who could praise him more. Celebi, thoroughly amused, beamed with joy. Before long, the carving was complete. Hikaru knew well his accumulated knowledge and skills were never in vain. Crafted item, small ancient statue Sinjar ruins style. Description, a statue carved in an ancient style. Some Celebi enthusiasts may pay a high price for it. Effect 1, Memory Recall allows Pokémon to remember moves they once knew but had forgotten. Effect 2, Child of the Forest prevents getting lost in forests and reduces encounters with wild Pokémon. Chapter 47. The special effects of Celebi's statue include move relearning and protection from wild Pokémon attacks in the forest, highly practical abilities. At the same time, Hikaru recalled the Pokémon, Celebi, Voice of the Forest movie. In that film, when Ash and his friends entered the forest with Celebi, they were not attacked by any wild Pokémon. In fact, led by Ursaring, the Pokémon even guided them along the way. Celebi, known as the guardian deity of the forest, is revered by all Pokémon and has left behind many unique legends across different eras. As for move relearning, while Pokémon in the real world of Pokémon rarely forget moves they've learned, there are exceptions. For example, moves that can be learned before evolution but become unavailable after evolving. Tie-in. Celebi caressed its own statue, looking very pleased. At the same time, it sensed a mysterious power contained within the statue. While it couldn't fully comprehend it, it felt a deep connection to it. It was quite similar to the ancient statues carved for it by humans. Afterward, Celebi flitted around Hikaru's workshop, poking here and touching there. When it saw moss being cultivated in some flower pots, it reached out and touched them. Immediately, Hikaru received feedback from the system. Rare material, luminous moss. Description: a single-use glowing moss. If the Pokémon holding it is hit by a water-type move, its special defense will increase. Knowledge acquired, +1. Moss Mastery: if luminous moss is transplanted onto a rock, there is a chance it will transform into mossy rock. Celebi has completed a crafting task, gaining experience and growth. Learned the move, Helping Hand. Hikaru chuckled inwardly. Well, I just gained myself. In the Pokémon world, many names are derived from plants, and Hikaru was no exception. Hikaru refers to a type of moss, which also happens to be a battle item. For Pokémon weak to water-type moves, this luminous moss can help them resist water-type attacks effectively. If it were transplanted onto a Pokémon like Onix, maybe it could make them resistant to water. What should I call a Pokémon like that? Mossy Onix. If an Onix covered itself in a layer of moss over time, could it even develop a grass typing? While contemplating, Hikaru completed another crafting process, this time with Celebi's help. The moss cultivation technique was successfully developed, unlocking a new material hint. Rare material, unique woodland sapling. Obtaining locations: Oakwood / Viridian Forest / Petalburg Wood / White Forest / Santaloon Forest / Glimwood Tangle. Corresponding craft: unique tree cultivation technique. BII. Celebi gazed happily at the glowing moss in the pot, appearing carefree and joyful, as if nothing could trouble it. As for the symbol plate and the Arceus statue, Celebi had already secretly examined them the previous night. Labi. Celebi pointed at the glowing moss, expressing its wish. Now that the shrine was repaired, Celebi hoped to transplant some of these glowing mosses as decorations. Hikaru hadn't expected such a request, but it was a great idea. Adding moss as a decoration would enhance the shrine's aged and sacred atmosphere. He gave Celebi a thumbs up. That's a brilliant idea. BII. Celebi puffed out its chest proudly. Hikaru laughed as well. Looks like you approve of my craftsmanship. Then tomorrow, we'll help you restore the shrine. You've helped me out a lot, after all. But to properly restore ancient carvings and ruins, I'll need ancient rocks or ruin stones. My supply of stones from the Shinto ruins is almost depleted. Hikaru scratched his head. Ruin stones were the easiest to acquire, but he lacked a good mode of transportation, making travel to the Shinto ruins inconvenient. Besides, the ruins served a special purpose, and if he kept returning, Grandpa Yama and Wataro would probably think he was restocking supplies. Do you know where I can find ancient rocks or ruin stones? Hearing Hikaru's question, Celebi pressed its tiny hand to its chin, lifted its little head, and its eyes gleamed with recollection. Before long, it exclaimed excitedly. Tyene. Yes, there was a ruin. Northwest of Shinto Forest, there was a collapsed and ruined structure. It wasn't anything important, and there was nothing valuable inside, only some strange stones. As for why it collapsed, it seemed to be due to a Pokémon battle. That ruin had been in ruins for a long time. Labi. Celebi detailed the state of the ruins while Dowblade translated with a series of eerie yo-yo-yo sounds. Meanwhile, Petalil swayed its leaves, pondering how it should handle battles with Volturb when it returned to the forest. In Shinto Forest, powerful Pokémon marked their own territories. If one invaded another's domain, battles would break out. It wasn't surprising that some unfortunate ruins had been destroyed in the process. As for ancient rocks, Hikaru wasn't even sure what qualified as one. Was it defined from a geological standpoint? If so, then there were way too many possibilities. Would a rock from 1,000 years ago count? What about one from 100 million or a billion years ago? That said, the Pokémon world hadn't existed for that long. Anyway, let's go check out the ruins tomorrow. Now that Hikaru had Celebi's statue, he could safely venture deep into the forest. The wild Pokémon wouldn't attack him. This effect was far superior to that of the Cleanse tag. The Cleanse tag could repel weak wild Pokémon, but against stronger, higher level ones, it lost its effectiveness. At that moment, Celebi suddenly spoke. BII. Recently, many Pokémon in Shinto Forest had been acting restless, even leaving their habitats. Hey? Is that so? Hikaru recalled the Scyther incident mentioned in the village. However, Celebi simply patted its tiny chest confidently, as if to say there was no problem at all. BB, Labi. No worries. Just follow me inside, and those Pokémon won't attack us. It held its head high and puffed out its chest, looking quite different from the Celebi Hikaru had seen in the anime. Could this Celebi's personality be arrogant? Or perhaps bold? Hikaru took out a Pecha berry and offered it to Celebi. It happily accepted and ate it without hesitation. However, when Hikaru handed it a Figgy berry, Celebi shook its head. Figgy berries restore 1/3 of a Pokémon's maximum HP but cause confusion if the Pokémon dislikes spicy flavors. Oh, I see. Your nature is bold. No wonder it actively approached him. Normally, mythical Pokémon weren't fond of interacting with humans, but a bold-natured Pokémon would be curious enough to try new things. Celebi floated onto the workbench, nibbling on the Pecha berry while tapping Hikaru's arm with its tiny fingers. Do you need any other materials? After Dao Blade translated, Hikaru thought for a moment and replied. Could you get me a sapling from oak woods? In Johto, the best quality trees came from oak woods. Hikaru had chopped many trees from the outskirts of Shinto Forest but hadn't triggered any new crafting techniques. He wanted to cultivate a tree from oak woods to see what made it special. Even charcoal made from oak woods had mysterious effects. Now was the perfect time to use the new crafting knowledge he had obtained. A sapling from oak woods? No problem. Celebi confidently patted its chest again. While the Celebi worshipped in oak woods wasn't her, all Celebis could use the shrines scattered across different regions to travel through time. Without hesitation, Celebi soared outside. Under the watchful eyes of Hikaru and his 2 Pokémon, it performed a time jump. A radiant glow of time energy swirled, and soon, Celebi returned using its psychic power to carry an oak wood sapling, gently placing it in front of Hikaru. Celebi beamed proudly, tilting its head high. Time travel is amazing, right? It had instantly traveled to oak woods, pulled out a sapling, and returned. Since oak woods had a shrine, she could teleport there directly. That's incredible. Even though Hikaru had seen this countless times in games, witnessing it in reality was an entirely different experience. His praise was genuine. Celebi puffed up even more proudly. As soon as Hikaru touched the sapling, information flooded into his mind. Rare material, oak wood sapling. Description: a unique sapling from oak woods. Although the entire forest consists of oak trees, they cannot be found growing elsewhere. Once fully grown, the oak tree can be used to create top-quality charcoal. In the shadow cast by its canopy, time is considered nighttime. Acquired crafting knowledge, +2. Unique charcoal crafting, C. Gained knowledge of crafting the finest quality charcoal. Charcoal burned from oak woods trees possesses special effects. Unique sapling cultivation, C+ saplings from specific forests can be transplanted anywhere while retaining their original forest's special properties. 2 new techniques related to trees just as Hikaru had anticipated when he first discovered clues about them. So, that's how it works. Hikaru had noticed that both of the material hints Celebi had provided earlier included oak woods. He had assumed that each crafting technique corresponded to a single material, but that wasn't entirely correct. Some materials could be linked to multiple techniques, it just required the right conditions to trigger them. Still, even if he hadn't obtained the second crafting technique today, he could always acquire it by visiting another forest. Crafting knowledge wouldn't disappear, and neither would the materials. I thought today's workload would be lighter, but it looks like I've got a lot more to do. Chapter 48. Hikaru rolled up his sleeves, ready to get to work. Harvesting medicinal herbs required processing them into traditional medicine. This way, he could refine his pharmaceutical crafting skills and unlock new materials. For the sapling cultivation, Hikaru chose a hillside to plant the tree. Once the initial planting was done, Celebi confidently patted its chest, signaling that everything was in good hands. The oakwood sapling was planted on a nearby slope, and Celebi used its powers to accelerate its growth at an unbelievable rate. The sapling rapidly passed through its growth stages, taller, thicker, stronger, until it transformed into a towering tree. Hikaru watched in awe at this miraculous scene, while Celebi flew over, grinning expectantly, as if waiting for praise. You really are amazing. Hikaru didn't hold back on his compliments. With a tree this big, I can finally produce that special charcoal. Plus, I can carve even stronger wooden sculptures from oakwood's timber. And where there's one, there's two. Who's to say Celebi can't fetch another oakwood sapling? Maybe one day, after gathering all sorts of unique saplings, I can plant them around the workshop and create a forest of wonders, a blend of trees from different regions, each with its own special abilities and characteristics. Just imagining such a landscape filled Hikaru with excitement. Of course, transplanting foreign tree species could sometimes lead to ecological imbalance. However, as Hikaru glanced at the vast and seemingly endless Shinto forest, he wondered. Would this massive forest even care about a few new tree species? The sheer number of towering trees in Shinto forest was beyond count. Besides, diglets frequently gnawed on tree roots and seemed to have no particular preference. That alone acted as a form of natural ecological control. Once the planting was complete, Hikaru had Dao Blade cut the branches from the enormous oak tree, gather the wood, and store it properly. Meanwhile, he and Petalil began preparing traditional medicine. Celebi curiously observed both processes, watching Dao Blade practicing Fury Cutter while chopping trees, before eventually drifting over to the workshop entrance to check out Hikaru's herbal crafting. Floating in midair, Celebi watched as Hikaru processed the herbs. Petalil shook the leaves on its head, and Hikaru plucked one to mix with previously collected herbs for drying. Use Sunny Day. At Hikaru's command, Petalil swayed its head. Even after a leaf was plucked, new ones would sprout immediately, as long as it had enough energy. Oh! Petalil used Sunny Day. A powerful sunlight beamed down, helping dry the herbs. This was the traditional sun-drying method, which removed moisture from medicinal ingredients using solar energy. However, sun-drying wasn't suitable for all herbs. Some required oven drying, especially berry-based medicines, while others needed shade drying to preserve their medicinal value. Different drying techniques had to be used accordingly: fire pits, heated walls, or burning agricultural waste, branches, and firewood to provide the necessary heat. Juicier medicinal fruits, for instance, needed to be quickly dried at temperatures between 70–90 degrees C to prevent nutrient loss. Hikaru also recalled that more advanced traditional medicine could incorporate spores to alter medicinal properties. Pokémon that could use spore, such as Parasect, might play a role in medicine making. Additionally, ingredients from Pokémon like Toxicroak's venom or Cedra's spines could be used for medicinal purposes. Something to experiment with in the future. Meanwhile, Celebi flitted back and forth, observing the drying herbs on one side and Doublade's rapid swordplay on the other. Time flew by, and within an hour and a half, Hikaru's first batch of dried herbs was complete. All right, time to grind them. Hikaru moved the dried herbs into the medicine crafting room, prepared the grinding tools, and began processing them. Before long, he had produced his first batch of traditional medicine. Crafting process complete. Obtained, unique high-quality medicine. Description and effects: carefully processed medicine that significantly restores a Pokémon's HP but has an extremely bitter taste, reducing Pokémon friendship. However, if given to Pokémon that like bitter flavors, it increases their friendship instead. Knowledge acquired, +1. Potion compatibility: combining medicine with specific berry juices creates different flavors, improving Pokémon friendship and enhancing vitality. Hikaru blinked. Hey? So I don't have to worry about medicine lowering friendship anymore. Berry medicine juice? That sounds a bit unappetizing. Would it actually taste good? Right on cue, Petalil's crafting bonus popped up. Petalil assisted in the process, gaining experience and growth. Acquired knowledge: herbal cultivation plus 5% efficiency in growing medicinal herbs. Learned move: grassy glide. Petalil noticed the change in its abilities, spun around once, and then suddenly slid across the floor. Grassy glide. A surge of green energy sprouted along its path, forming a grassy terrain. However, the workshop wasn't very spacious, so Petalil crashed into a wall, leaving it dizzy. Celebi quickly flew down, laughing as it helped the dazed Pokémon up. Be careful when using new moves, Hikaru chuckled. Then, new material hints appeared. Material: soft sand. Locations: rock mountain ruins, smoky city, deep caves, natural sand piles, Rage Lake shore, olivine beach. Corresponding craft: unique glassmaking technique. Oh, soft sand. That's the item that boosts ground-type moves. Glassmaking, hey? Looks like my forge will be getting more use. I heard that glass artworks sell really well in Kanto. Hikaru took a juice extractor from the cabinet. It was shaped like a cedra. Placing harvested berries inside, he blended them into juice. Then, following the newly acquired knowledge, he mixed the medicine into different juices, creating 4 servings of berry medicine juice. Alright, who wants to try? Dowblade had already returned, and Hikaru placed the 4 juices in front of the 3 Pokémon, taking one for himself. Don't worry, I didn't use any bitter-tasting berries. Oran berry and high-quality medicine, heal herb. Hondu berry and high-quality medicine, vital bloom. Citrus berry and high-quality medicine, royal leaf. Vi. Petalil eagerly approached first. However, instead of drinking from the cup, it dipped its head leaf inside, absorbing the Hondu medicine juice. A moment later, it let out a delighted exclamation. Yaa! Delicious! Hondu berries have a mild spicy taste. Mixed with vital bloom, they can cure a Pokémon's status condition. Seeing Petalil's excitement, Celebi followed suit and took a sip this time, properly drinking from the cup. Tea. As expected, Celebi's eyes sparkled in surprise. It had chosen the Oran berry and heal herb blend. Oran berries have a mix of flavors, and when combined with heal herb, they greatly restore a Pokémon's HP. The last cup was for Dowblade, though its method of drinking looked somewhat eerie. Its red ribbons touched the cup's surface, the 2 hilts fought over the drink, and ghostly energy slowly absorbed the liquid. Yup! Its 2 eyes widened in delight. Of course, this one has royal leaf. It's known as the king of herbs, reduces Pokémon fatigue and increases move usage limits. Hikaru also drank his own blend Hondu and revival herb and pecha berry and royal leaf. The taste was indescribable, bitter, sweet, sour, and astringent, all mixed together. The effect? Fully restores a fainted Pokémon's HP and boosts vitality. He felt his exhaustion fading, his body surging with energy. If I fully master berry juice crafting, could I create nutrient drinks? Nutrient drinks Pokémon stat boosters. The 3 Pokémon swapped sips before turning toward Hikaru's cup with eager eyes. Celebi sat on his lap, Dowblade hovered behind, and Petalil clung to his shoulder, all pleading for more. Alright, I'll make more. As Hikaru surrendered his drink, an Unoni quietly observed from behind an old pendulum clock. The Unoni watched from the shadows, its gaze fixed on the lively scene of Hikaru and the Pokémon interacting. It was also part of this home, after all. In fact, this place was originally its residence. The last time it had messed up, it hadn't dared to show itself. Now, seeing everyone so happy together, it couldn't help but feel envious. I have to find the right time to reveal myself. Unable to bear the cheerful atmosphere any longer, Unoni phased through the walls with its psychic power, vanishing into the outside world. Meanwhile, Hikaru was still immersed in the excitement of his discoveries. With the new crafting knowledge and materials, his workshop was steadily progressing. The idea of using berry juice to counteract the bitterness of traditional medicine had been a breakthrough. Not only could it prevent a decrease in Pokémon friendship, but it could even enhance their bond. Hikaru took out his notebook and recorded some new notes. Notes. Celebi Pokémon from Shinto Forest. Ability, Natural Cure. Nature, Bold. Met in front of the abandoned workshop. Dislikes spicy flavors. Extremely curious. Now that the medicines and juices were successfully crafted, Hikaru turned his attention to his next goal, crafting the best quality charcoal from oak woods. With the massive oak tree grown by Celebi, he had more than enough wood to begin production. The next step was to start burning and refining the material. Tomorrow is going to be another busy day. Chapter 49. June 27th. When Hikaru woke up from his sleep, he noticed something pressing down on his chest, making it a little hard to breathe. Celebi was lying quietly on top of him. Meanwhile, Dowblade remained propped against the wall at a 45 degrees angle, now appearing as 2 separate swords, resting even more securely. Outside the house, Petalil remained nestled in the soil and hadn't returned inside. This workshop is getting lively. Hikaru now had 3 Pokémon by his side. Although he hadn't officially captured Celebi, they had become friends, which felt even better. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, unwilling to move in case he disturbed Celebi. Before long, Celebi stretched lazily, its tiny feet flexing as it let out a light, joyful sound. T. Seeing Celebi wake up, Hikaru's mood also improved. However, he couldn't help but notice the dark rings around Celebi's eyes, resembling sleep deprivation. Forget it. Some comments are better left unsaid. Good morning. Hikaru greeted Celebi, who flapped its tiny wings and hovered into the air, allowing him to sit up. However, Celebi seemed to notice his sluggishness and quickly flew to his head, closing its eyes as it began to hum softly. The sound was incredibly pleasant, like distant chimes echoing through the sky. Heal Bell restored Hikaru's condition. Oh! I feel great now. Let's have breakfast first. Hikaru patted Celebi's head and went to the kitchen. Today, he planned to make something special. After obtaining hard minerals, he had yet to attempt crafting lure dumplings. Now was the perfect time to put that technique to use. In the Hisui era, lure dumplings were made by combining lure ingredients with specific plants or minerals. The base was typically rice dumplings or flour-based dumplings. Wait, if I use rice, isn't that just an nigiri? And if I use flour, isn't that basically steamed buns? Thinking this over, Hikaru began making lure dumplings. He steamed rice, shaped it into dumplings, and mixed in the hard minerals, causing the dumplings to take on a faint pink hue. This completed the most basic mineral lure dumpling. However, after contemplating the crafting knowledge in his mind, he decided to enhance it further. Celebi, can you use magical leaf? Celebi, who had been curiously eyeing the dumplings, looked up at Hikaru and nodded. It didn't know why Hikaru was asking, but it immediately produced a flurry of magical leaves. Hikaru blended the leaves into the mineral lure dumplings, adding chopped berries as well. Crafting complete. Crafted food, mineral lure dumpling. Effect, made from minerals, magical leaves, berries, and lure ingredients. Strongly attracts grass and rock-type Pokémon. Mixing in other special ingredients may create unique effects. Bonus effect, overgrowth food temporarily enhances grass-type energy, benefiting grass-type Pokémon growth. Knowledge gained, cooking expertise food quality increased by 15%. Wait, did I just make an overgrowth dumpling? Hikaru looked at the dumpling in his hand and passed it to Celebi, who immediately took it and devoured it with delight. It's delicious. Stretching his body, Hikaru noticed Dowblade waking up, floating lazily from its corner. Outside the window, Petalil's leaves swayed as it peeked in curiously. Everyone's awake. Hikaru opened the window, picked up Petalil, and made a few more dumplings. Both Petalil and Dowblade were delighted, especially Petalil, who felt a surge of power after eating the overgrowth dumpling. Wah wah! The leaves on its head seemed to grow slightly larger. Alright, today we'll head to Shinto Forest. I need to prepare my equipment first. After breakfast, Hikaru gathered everything he needed. Work attire material backpack carving and repair tools luminous moss, for Celebi. Suddenly, Celebi flew over to its statue and hugged it tightly. You want to take it with you? Celebi nodded eagerly. It really liked the statue. But after glancing around, it quickly floated over to Dowblade and whispered something. Yu Dowblade translated, Celebi wants to trade something valuable for the statue. Labi. Celebi chirped proudly, expressing its reasoning. Through time travel, it could collect treasures from different eras. If Hikaru was willing to trade, it wouldn't take the statue for free. If we place Celebi's statue in the forest shrine, it'll probably function like a save point for wild Pokémon, hey? Since it allows move relearning. Hikaru chuckled. Alright, I'll look forward to the trade next time. Celebi nodded confidently, promising that its next gift would not disappoint. Once Hikaru and the Pokémon were ready to leave, Petalil excitedly joined in. Since no one's staying home today, we'll all go together. Wah wah! Petalil clenched its leafy fists with determination. It had been training and working hard these past few days, now it was stronger than ever. You're pretty eager, but we might not run into those Hisuian Volturb this time. Hikaru patted its leaves, then set off with his Pokémon toward the forest. After they left, deep within the forest, a Turtwig peeked out from the bushes, watching Hikaru and his Pokémon with envy. It must be nice to have companions. But since they weren't here today, it could finally come to the workshop and bask in the sunlight. Photosynthesis would help the plants on its back grow better. I don't have any companions, so I have to rely on these special grasses to get stronger. Perched atop the workshop roof, Unoni observed the Turtwig. It had noticed this little guy visiting for the past few days. It must have been brought here by Celebi. Since it didn't seem to be damaging the land, Unoni decided to continue watching for now. With Celebi leading the way, the group first passed through the area where they had previously chopped trees, then moved deeper toward the northwest toward where they had found the black apricorn tree. The route soon changed. Wait, this is the same direction that Hisui and Volturb rolled off in. Hikaru rubbed his chin and checked his supplies. Just in case, he took out a Max Repel and a Silence Spray. Max Repel prevents weak wild Pokémon encounters. Silence Spray temporarily silences footsteps, making it harder for wild Pokémon to detect the user. Petalil remained on high alert, constantly scanning the surroundings. After using the sprays, the effect was immediate. Wild Pokémon moved away. Hikaru picked up several dropped Pokémon materials along the way, as well as more hard minerals. They had been traveling northwest for a long time now. Yet, contrary to expectations, no battles had broken out. No wild Pokémon attacked. No Hisui and Volturb appeared. Then, Celebi suddenly flew ahead and gestured excitedly. We're here. The ruins. Let's collect some stones first. A massive fallen tree lay across the forest path, surrounded by other tilted trees. Something must have happened here. Dao Blade, use Fury Cutter. Technically, cut would be better, but the fallen tree was too massive. Dao Blade immediately unsheathed its blades. Double Speed Fury Cutter cancel. You don't have to cancel this one. Hikaru scratched his head as Dao Blade swiftly carved out a large gap in the tree, allowing them to pass through. Beyond the dense greenery, they emerged into an open clearing, clearly not a natural formation. The entrance to an ancient ruin stood before them, partially collapsed, with signs of previous repairs. Hikaru took a step inside and immediately sensed something was off. The patterns on the ground, they looked familiar. Like an H. Is this Rock Mountain ruins? Hikaru gazed deeper into the ruins. The temple's primary color was an earthy brown, seemingly built from a mixture of mud bricks and stone. In various legends, Rock Mountain Ruins was known as the resting place of Regirock, one of the legendary titans. The ruins' locations and unlocking methods varied across different regions, but their connection to the titans remained consistent. As Hikaru walked further inside, he noticed that, just like in other Rock Mountain ruins, there were no extra rooms, only a main hall. Inside, a massive stone statue of a giant figure stood, though it was severely damaged. Signs of battle covered the area. For a moment, Hikaru felt a strange sensation as if time had rewound. The broken ruins before him restored to their original state in his vision, showing the temple as it once was. He quickly shook his head, snapping out of the illusion. As the vision faded, new knowledge surfaced in his mind. So that's it. This illusion was triggered by my ancient inscriptions knowledge. Understanding of all ruin-related knowledge has increased by 25%. So that's what it meant. I can now perceive how ruins originally looked and decipher hidden mechanisms and inscriptions. With this newfound insight, Hikaru quickly noticed something hidden beneath a pile of rubble in the corner, a cache of iron ore and a faintly glowing purple stone placed on the ground. It was an evolution stone. Hikaru hurriedly picked up the evolution stone, verifying its authenticity. Since he had previously obtained one before, no new crafting techniques were triggered, but he still felt satisfied. Yoo-hoo! Dao Blade immediately reacted upon seeing the evolution stone, vibrating excitedly. It's back! The stone is back! I'll help refine it when we return, Hikaru reassured. Yoo-hoo up! For once, Dao Blade's two blades didn't argue, instead, they seemed genuinely happy. Not long after Hikaru and his Pokémon entered the ruins, a large scyther landed on a fallen tree nearby. Its eyes widened at the sight of the massive tree that had been cleaved cleanly in half. SCY. A powerful opponent. Scyther sharpened its scythes, its gaze filled with caution as it examined the footprints on the ground. Did an outsider enter? The swordsmanship displayed in that cut was beyond ordinary. If a trainer like that remained in the outer regions of the forest, it would pose a problem for its dominance. SCY. A black phantom-like titan. A giant bear covered in peat. A rock colossus. And now, a human who could slice apart massive trees? There were too many obstacles to its rule. First, that massive bear had wandered into the outer forest, causing a mess. Then, the stone giant's awakening had disrupted the forest's peace. Now, even humans were meddling in things. Yet, despite all this frustration, Scyther felt an unusual hesitation. Why don't I feel the urge to attack this human? Every time it attempted to follow the footprints deeper into the ruins, its battle instincts dulled. It couldn't explain the sensation, and after several moments of indecision, Scyther reluctantly flew away. This human is strange. I'll deal with that stone giant instead. With that, Scyther disappeared into the depths of the forest. Chapter 50. Inside Rock Mountain Ruins. Hikaru cautiously approached the broken giant stone statue, noticing that half of the H-shaped marking on the ground was buried under rubble. As he examined the statue, knowledge surged into his mind. Ancient craft, giant stone statue, damaged. Description: a statue used for worship and the sealing of Regia rock. Currently, no power can be felt from it. It is severely damaged. It was a powerless, half-collapsed statue, meaning Regia rock was no longer here. The surrounding minerals. If I look closely, these seem to have crumbled from inside the ruins' walls. So, it's said that Regia rock repairs its body using special stones. Did the ancient people offer minerals in its temple for this very reason? Aside from these materials, Hikaru also gathered iron ore and limestone, storing them in his backpack. Among them, a high-quality metal piece stood out. Rare material, fragmented iron. Description: naturally formed metal fragments, can be processed into locks and other small parts. Forging insight, gained some knowledge from skilled blacksmiths. Additionally, Hikaru easily found soft sand in the collapsed area of the ruins. Piles of it had gathered naturally. Rare material, soft sand, quartz. Effect: fine textured sand. When held, it boosts the power of ground-type moves. Crafting unlocked, unique glassmaking technique, c. By refining soft sand, unique glass products can be crafted while retaining the material's original effects. Unlockable items: marbles, glass whistle. Oh, that's the Hone region's specialty item, the glass whistle. However, the glass whistles in Hone were made from volcanic ash. Local glassmasters refined them into different types with unique effects. I wonder what kind of special effects my version will have. Hikaru continued searching the ruins. When he touched a fallen wall section and unearthed some heavy, uniquely textured and differently colored stones, more information surfaced. Rare material, ancient rock. Description: rock that has either fallen from Regia rock's body or was assimilated by it. It is said that every stone comprising Regia rock's body was excavated from different lands, and similar rocks can be found across all geological layers of the world. Some rock-type Pokémon also shed or create similar stones. Contains powerful rock-type energy or has been infused with strong psychic power. Crafting unlocked, ancient architecture technique, b. When combined with ruin engraving and environmental sculpture techniques, it allows for the recreation of buildings with an ancient aesthetic. Discovered clues: Regia rock, Gargonicle, Stonjourner, Carbink, Diancie, Tree of Beginning. Unlockable items: King's Rock, Cleanse Tag, Outer Shell, Dot. King's Rock, a naturally formed, crown-shaped stone. With the right crafting technique and ancient rock, it can be refined into an artificial King's Rock. However, it does not unlock the crafting method for ancient crown. Oh. So this is ancient rock. That means it's stone assimilated by powerful rock-type Pokémon. I can now craft King's Rock and Cleanse Tag. King's Rock was a held item that sometimes caused opponents to flinch when attacking. If given to Poliwhirl or Slowpoke, they could evolve. Meanwhile, the Cleanse Tag was a brilliant, translucent charm. Holding it prevented stat reduction from an opponent's moves or abilities. Some theorized its core material came from Carbink's diamonds or Metagross steel hide. This item was particularly hated by Pokémon with Intimidate, though, of course, only by opponents. Having a legendary Titan in the ruins means it's possible to craft items like these. From the material descriptions, it wasn't just Regia rock that could generate ancient rock, other Pokémon could as well. For example, Gargonicle's orange crystals were crystallized rock-type energy. It absorbed sunlight through them, which then reacted in its energy core and was fired as light spheres from its mouth. Meanwhile, Stonjourner's Pokédex entry stated that its rock composition was identical to Monolith's, and it had a unique ability, Power Spot, that enhanced teammates. And of course, Carbink and Diancie were self-explanatory. The Tree of Beginning was believed to be the origin of fossil Pokémon. The rocks from that site contained crystalline life energy. This confirmed that ancient rocks' effects were similar to ruin stone. The two could substitute for each other. Ruins contained the spiritual energy of ancient civilizations, infused by their beliefs and emotions. This spiritual essence was a real phenomenon in the Pokémon world, otherwise, how else would ghost types and psychic types exist? Hikaru realized this temple held more treasures than expected. Many minerals had fallen from its collapsed walls. By now, he had gathered a substantial amount of materials, and his backpack had become extremely heavy. Thankfully, Celebi used psychic to make the bag float, significantly lightening the load. Thanks, Celebi. Celebi patted its chest. Leave it to me. No problem. Could the ancient crystal be in here? Or, is it part of the floor? Hikaru searched for one last item that could be found in Rock Mountain ruins, the ancient crystal. The most crystal-like objects in the ruins were the circular eyes of the giant statue and the large H-shaped marking on the floor. After all, the H symbol glowed when stepped on, emitting a clear, yellow radiance resembling crystal. Sweeping away the dust, Hikaru touched the transparent part of the H symbol. Immediately, knowledge flooded his mind. Precious material, ancient crystal, not yet acquired. Description: a rare ancient crystal with mysterious powers. It can communicate a Pokémon's will to humans, allowing deep understanding between them. It can also be used to seal Pokémon. Unlockable item, cleanse tag, core, dot. Hikaru looked around carefully and finally found a massive, broken crystal in a corner, seemingly embedded into the wall as an additional structure. I found ancient crystal. Knowledge gained: heart of the crystal can communicate telepathically with ancient Pokémon. Crafting unlocked, unique tool crafting, C+. By combining Pokémon materials, tools for production or rituals with unique abilities can be crafted. This may require forging techniques. Unlockable item, protective gear. With all necessary materials gathered, Hikaru and his Pokémon left Rock Mountain ruins. Thanks to Celebi's psychic, carrying the heavy backpack was effortless. Following Celebi's lead, they headed southwest. Before long, they arrived at Celebi's shrine, located in a clearing within the forest. This shrine differed from Oakwood's shrine. It was built entirely from stone, resembling the one from Pokémon, Celebi, Voice of the Forest. It featured a stone base and an altar, though it had noticeable differences. Its design matched the style of Shinto ruins. However, the upper half was missing, and the altar itself had been destroyed. The base also had numerous cracks and missing pieces. Alright, let's start the repairs. First, I'll reshape the ruined stones into a proper altar. The severely damaged parts will need a full resculpting, while smaller cracks can be filled and polished to restore their surface. With Doublade's help, Hikaru began cutting stone. Meanwhile, Petalil and Celebi assisted by polishing and restoring the base. Finally, glowing moss was placed, giving the shrine an ancient, mystical aura. Celebi joyfully placed its small statue inside the altar. At that moment, knowledge once again surged into Hikaru's mind. Ancient craft, Celebi's shrine. Effect: time leap acts as Celebi's time travel anchor. Occasionally, mysterious items from the past and future will appear. Just then, behind the shrine, something rolled out. A bright green fruit tumbled forward. It was a mickle berry. Chapter 51. Rare material, mickle berry. Description: this berry stores beneficial components within itself for Pokémon, requiring a long time to mature. Effect: when held by a Pokémon, it can cure all status conditions. Crafting obtained: 1. Rare candy crafting: B can be used to create rare candy that enhances a Pokémon's abilities, requiring mickle berries as the core material. Hikaru looked in surprise at the newly refreshed berry, while the other Pokémon also showed astonished expressions, eagerly crowding around. Only Celebi sat on the newly restored shrine, looking pleased. A miraculous berry, the mickle berry, hey? Now that we have it, we can plant its tree and achieve mickle berry self-sufficiency. And finally, we can craft rare candy. However, it would take some time for the berry tree to grow, probably about a month. Since it was already getting late, Hikaru took out some Pokémon food and instant meals, and after a simple meal, he prepared to head back. During this time, Celebi remained still. Hikaru seemed to sense something and asked with some reluctance. Are you leaving? Bye. Bye. Celebi nodded affirmatively. Now that the shrine was restored, it could perform time jumps again. The next time it returned, it wouldn't have to worry about not having a landing point. But honestly, the forest was quite boring. Hikaru's workshop was far more interesting. Bye. Celebi spread its arms, giving high fives to Doublet and Petalil before finally landing on Hikaru's head. It liked Doublet, Petalil, and Hikaru. It loved everyone at the workshop. Even if it left now, it would always remember them. For a Pokémon that could travel through time, this parting wasn't truly a farewell. It would return again someday in the future, just like the blink of an eye. By then, everyone would have evolved, right? Of course, there was also the sneaky Turtwig that secretly burrowed into the soil. Celebi had thought about revealing its little secret but decided against it, not wanting to betray its trust. Well, it wouldn't be long before Turtwig became their companion too. Celebi firmly believed this. Maybe it would travel to the past and future, gathering wonderful things and bringing them back for everyone. Be sure to visit the shrine from time to time. Is that so? Then thank you. If the shrine ever gets damaged again, come find me, I'll fix it for you. Hikaru smiled and watched Celebi vanish as it traveled through time. Gentle ripples spread through the space around them before gradually fading. Wait a second, without psychic assistance, my backpack suddenly feels so heavy. Dowblade, help me out here. After Hikaru and his 2 Pokémon left, perhaps an hour or maybe 3 passed as dusk settled over the forest. Suddenly, there was movement in the woods. A tall scyther appeared near Celebi's shrine. It circled the structure for a long time, recalling the human and Pokémon it had seen earlier. That human, the one with the strange twin swords, so they were here to repair the Forest Guardian's shrine? Wait, if they had the recognition of the Forest Guardian, wouldn't that make them dominant in the outer forest? What a troublesome person! But no matter, Scyther was determined to defeat that human. Just then, a second sound echoed. Scyther spun around sharply but, upon seeing the source, turned and fled in frustration. Boom! Boom! Heavy footsteps reverberated through the ancient forest. A massive, oppressive black figure emerged near Celebi's shrine. Its face was marked with an H-shaped light pattern, emitting a strange, static-laden buzzing sound, characteristic of the Regi species. It carefully observed the newly restored shrine. Had Hikaru still been there, he would have recognized its true identity immediately. The legendary giant Regirock. Leaving the forest, bidding farewell to a new friend. But life always finds a way to reunite. When Hikaru, Dowblade, and Petalil returned to the workshop, they noticed another small hole in the ground outside. Hikaru paused in thought. Come to think of it, these little holes kept appearing every day, only to be refilled later. Was this Celebi's doing? Or was it the work of Diglett? Finding no missing herbs nearby, Hikaru decided to let it go for now. Back inside, he carefully arranged the newly obtained materials and took out the evolution stone, immediately beginning the polishing process. Before long, the evolution stone was fully polished, revealing its unique properties. It draws out a Pokémon's inner potential, functioning similarly to slow EV growth. And Dowblade, in battle, it's actually a very powerful Pokémon. Hikaru handed the polished evolution stone to Dowblade, which immediately grabbed hold of it but... Pew! Pew! The right sword, I am the main body. The evolution stone should go on my hilt. The left sword, no, I am the main body. The evolution stone should be placed on me. The 2 swords unsheathed themselves, their blades shimmering with metallic light. It was iron defense. Just as they were about to fight, Hikaru was about to intervene when Petalil shook its head, as if to say, how silly. Petalil jumped into Hikaru's hand, took the evolution stone, and happily hopped behind Dowblade. There, a small, undeveloped shield was forming. Petalil tapped on the tiny shield. Dowblade's 2 swords paused. Oh, right. They had a shield now. If they put the stone on the shield, they wouldn't have to fight over it. Jiu, Pew! Thank you, Petalil. Petin! You did great! Hikaru patted Petalil's head and leaves, and the little Pokémon swayed happily. Jiu! At that moment, Dowblade floated over, feeling slightly troubled. Both of its eyes on the sword hilt stared at Hikaru, asking. When will we become a single consciousness again? That'll have to wait until we find a dusk stone, Hikaru answered. There's no other way. After all, both you and Petalil need stones to evolve. Pew! Dowblade looked a bit dejected. Its current form was certainly cool, but having 2 separate minds was a bit strange. Hikaru hadn't expected that, despite their constant internal battles, Dowblade still found its form impressive. Impressive? Of course. Even Hikaru had to admit it. If he strapped Dowblade to his back, wouldn't he look like one of those legendary sword masters? And with 2 blades, he could pull off the dual-wielding swordsman style. For now, let's plant the mickleberries and then rest. Petalil, I'll leave taking care of the berries to you. Peteen. Petalil lifted its tiny leaf-like skirt. Leave it to me. You can count on it. Just like Celebi, it wanted to stand tall with pride and use its abilities to accomplish amazing things. The mickle berries were important, and it was determined to nurture them well. The next day, the first batch of herbs and crops had been harvested, so it was time to plant the next batch quickly. Fortunately, they had just acquired new fertilizer, so soil fertility wouldn't be an issue. Petalil continued working diligently, fully focused on cultivating the mickle berries. Petai petai. A miraculous berry. A miraculous berry. Yesterday, it had carefully polished the shrine. Hikaru had given it a surprised look. He had noticed its effort. That's right, sculpting and polishing work, it could handle that too. Petalil glanced toward the workshop. Inside, the fourth empty room now had a large pickling jar, seemingly meant for making some kind of special food item, something called double pickles. Well, everything Hikaru made was amazing. As long as it remembered that, everything would be fine. Tilting its head, it peeked over to the other side of the hill, where wisps of smoke were rising. Petalil's leaves swayed as it curiously watched Hikaru and Dowblade working from the edge of the field. At the moment, Hikaru was digging a kiln for charcoal production. Charcoal kilns could be underground pit kilns or simple earth kilns. Hikaru had chosen a gentle slope and started digging out the kiln pit. If only we had a Pokémon that could dig, this would be so much easier. Meanwhile, Dowblade was busy trimming and chopping a pile of wood. After quite some time, the earthen kiln was finally completed, with a smoke vent and air inlet left open. Hikaru took the neatly prepared logs from Dowblade and stacked them inside the kiln. Then, he sealed the top with a mixture of mud and straw. The air vent also served as the ignition point. As Hikaru lit the kiln, wisps of blue smoke began rising from the chimney. During the charcoal making process, the kiln needed to be frequently checked for cracks or leaks. He also had to monitor the smoke's density and color to estimate the moisture content of the wood. The final step involved sealing the kiln and letting it smolder in a low-oxygen environment until the charcoal naturally cooled. This part would take a long time. To aid the process, Hikaru placed a Charizard statue next to the kiln. It was supposed to enhance the flames, but since charcoal making mainly relied on slow burning, its effectiveness was uncertain. What kind of unique transformation will this oak charcoal undergo after this special process? Hikaru was already looking forward to it. Another new product for the workshop's store. Herbal juices, will anyone buy them? Maybe after we make glass containers for bottling. Medicine herbs, energy roots, revival herbs, berries, luminous moss, double pickles. Am I running a pharmacy or something? As for light clay, Hikaru figured he'd ask the Diglett in the village to help dig some up next time. In exchange, he could offer them berries and vegetables. If they could find some, that would be great. The feeling of being busy was truly fulfilling. It seemed like the workshop's reputation was growing more and more. Chapter 52. Hikaru let out a satisfied sigh. There was nothing else to do while the charcoal was being processed, so he returned to the cabin and put all the available items up for sale. As for the wood carvings, the choice of Pokémon to sculpt didn't matter much. Unlike stone carvings, which required testing for effectiveness, wood carvings were more flexible and faster to complete. Speaking of which, what would happen if I carved a human figure? This thought surfaced in Hikaru's mind and refused to leave. In fact, he had considered making human sculptures before just to see the results. However, he had been too busy recently to carry out the idea. Without further hesitation, Hikaru began carving. As for the choice of subject, if he were to sculpt a well-known person he had recently encountered, it would undoubtedly be Volo. Carving Volo, hey! Would that attract Giratina? Never mind, I should pick someone else. How about Cynthia? Speaking of Volo, one would naturally think of Cynthia, right? Come to think of it, Volo, Cogita, and Cynthia all shared the same face. Were the ancient Sinnoh people's genes really that strong? Hikaru quickly got to work. His knife continuously chipped away at the wood, occasionally using a chisel to refine areas he found unsatisfactory. Before long, he completed a wooden sculpture of Cynthia. Artifact, small ancient wooden sculpture style of the Sinnoh ruins. Description, a wooden statue carved in an ancient style, depicting Sinnoh champion Cynthia. Effect, archaeology allows the discovery of one lost piece of knowledge from a ruin. Hey? This time, there's no mention of some collectors would buy it at a high price. Does that mean it won't sell? The effect is archaeology retrieving lost knowledge from ruins. That's Cynthia's profession. So, if I carve a person's image, the resulting effect is linked to their profession. Then what about someone without an extra profession, like a gym leader? Hikaru decided to carve another person, this time selecting a gym leader with no known secondary occupation. Norman. He was the father of the protagonist in the Pokémon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald games. Depending on the chosen player character, he would be either Brendan or May's father. In the anime, he was May's father, while in the manga, he was Ruby's. Norman was simply someone who pursued strength. Though in the Pokémon Adventures manga, he appeared to have previously worked as a league official, in the games and anime, he had no known side job or league position, just the title of gym leader. Artifact: small ancient wooden sculpture style of the Sinnoh ruins. Description: a wooden statue carved in an ancient style, depicting Norman of the Petalburg Gym. Effect: normal power increases the strength of normal type Pokémon training near the sculpture over time. Oh, so it boosts the corresponding Pokémon type's strength. Then what about someone with no job or associated Pokémon type? For his third sculpture, Hikaru chose red. Once the champion, he had since retired, with no official profession. He spent his days training in solitude on MT Silver, where he was practically a legend. Many considered him the strongest trainer in the Pokémon world. Artifact: small ancient wooden sculpture style of the Sinnoh ruins. Description: a wooden statue carved in an ancient style, depicting Kanto champion red. Effect: fighting spirit. When one of your Pokémon gains effort values, EVs, all of your Pokémon will also receive an equal amount. So red statue is for EV training. Hikaru spent almost an entire day absorbed in wood carving. His craftsmanship improved significantly, and his later sculptures became increasingly lifelike, shedding the slightly rough look of his earlier works. Finally, after some deliberation, Hikaru decided to carve Volo as well. Surprisingly, the effect of Volo's sculpture was increased friendship with Pokémon. Is this effect mocking his relationship with his Togekiss? Despite treating Pokémon as mere tools and calling himself a Pokémon tamer, Volo had raised a Togepi that required high friendship to evolve into Togekiss. He talks tough, but deep down, he cares about his Pokémon. Looking at his completed sculptures, Hikaru muttered, "This setup looks like a figurine shop." Observing his own hands, he noticed that his carving skills had visibly improved through repeated practice. In contrast, his progress with stone carving was slower, which made sense since stone was much harder to work with than wood. Even basic craftsmanship, when honed over years of repetition, can develop into a unique and outstanding skill. Due to repetitive completion of tasks, knowledge has increased. Wood carving specialist, plus 25% efficiency and skill in wood carving, sculptures will appear more ancient and refined. June 27, cloudy. As the month neared its end, Sinnoh's climate became noticeably warmer. Yesterday had been eventful, with charcoal production and wood carving. Today, Hikaru planned to focus on crafting stone sculptures and a batch of charms. Additionally, he would work on making the King's Rock and Pure Pendant. At the workshop, Hikaru and his Pokémon began making charms, a relatively quick task. Dao blade swiftly sliced through fabric, but Hikaru noticed something new. It was no longer using its blades directly. Instead, it had started using Psycho Cut. The tangible psychic blades moved like fine threads, demonstrating that Da blade's psychic power had significantly improved. If it keeps training like this, could it eventually learn Spatial Rend? Dimensional Slash? Unfortunately, ghost types didn't have any true cutting moves. Among the ghost type moves Dao blade could use, only Shadow Sneak and Shadow Claw were actual ghost type attacks, though it hadn't even learned Shadow Claw yet. For now, it had to rely on psychic type cutting moves. But if it mastered Psycho Cut, it could become quite formidable. Hikaru didn't disturb Dao blade and instead prepared the Ancient Rock and Ancient Crystal for crafting the Pure Pendant and King's Rock. While his unique polishing technique was useful, handling crystals required extra care. Thinking of Petalil's leaves, he got an idea. He went to the herb field, where Petalil immediately ran up to him excitedly. "Wah!" Hikaru picked up Petalil, who let out a melodious sound, humming a little tune. After explaining the task, she became eager to help. She had been waiting for this moment. Finally, she could contribute to crafting. Petalil plucked one of her leaves and assisted as Hikaru finished shaping the Pure Pendant and King's Rock. Naturally occurring king's rocks were stones that had naturally formed into a crown shape, making their surface rough and uneven. In contrast, handmade king's rocks had sharp edges and a polished gleam just like the ones in certain spin-off games. Meanwhile, Hikaru continued carving the stone casing for the pure pendant, made from ancient rock. By the time Petalil had finished polishing, Hikaru had also completed his work. Petalil has completed a crafting task. Gained experience and growth. Learned move, Encore. Gained knowledge, grass polishing plus 15% precision in polishing rocks and crystals. Hey! Encore. Hikaru paused for a moment before realizing this was the missing piece in his battle strategy. This move is crucial to victory. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, he carefully embedded the polished ancient crystal into the stone casing. Crafted items. Pure pendant, Sinnoh Ruins style. Effect, a luminous, crystal clear pendant. Holding it prevents stat reductions from opponents' moves or abilities. Additional effect, Pure Mind slightly purifies the hearts of Pokémon and humans. Due to its Sinnoh Ruins style carving, it also mildly strengthens mental power and alleviates fatigue. King's Rock. Effect, when the holder attacks, there is a chance to make the opponent flinch. Additional effect, Regal Presence Pokémon's recognition of the holder increases by 20%. Hikaru took a deep breath. The two most important evolution stones. Hikaru exhaled deeply. Among the three acquisition methods, obtaining one from Valo was the simplest. However, if he only had one stone, Hikaru would still need to find another. Encountering Regirock was far from easy. It made sense for the evolution stones to be found on Regirock after all. This Pokémon roamed in search of rare stones to repair its body, and evolution stones were among the rarest. Hikaru calmed his thoughts and went to check on the charcoal he had made the previous day. He headed down the hillside to retrieve it. These charcoal pieces had been made from oak wood, and although the kill was somewhat crude, the craftsmanship and materials made up for the lack of advanced equipment. Chapter 53. Rare material, scorching charcoal from the oak forest. Description: this high-quality charcoal is produced from burning oak wood and is said to purify water and air. Effect: when held by a Pokémon, Fire-type moves increase in power by 20%. Unique effect: Fire-type moves gain an additional 15% power boost. When held for an extended period by a Fire-type Pokémon, its Fire-type energy gradually increases, unlocking its latent potential. Acquisition Craft, Flame Forging Craft, Very Happy Face, a forging technique that utilizes various attribute materials. Items created using this technique significantly enhance Fire, Steel, and Psychic-type Pokémon. Oh, I unlocked forging. With this, the forge in the workshop can now operate year-round. Pottery firing, glass making, metal forging. And not just for obtaining materials. A craft has been completed. Gained knowledge: accelerated firing increases the speed of fired item production by 15%. The effect of the craftwork matches what was described under rare materials. Scorching charcoal. Hikaru vaguely recalls that this item exists in the Pokémon trading card game, appearing as pitch-black charcoal with flames bursting out from its cracks. Afterward, Hikaru received a random material clue. Material: leftovers. Acquisition locations: the orchard in the workshop, deep within the Kamiyako forest, the nameless grove, carried by Hiswai's mischievous Volturb. Corresponding craft: unique leftovers processing. Hey! Hikaru was momentarily stunned. While many items function both as battle tools and natural materials, he never expected something as simple as leftovers to have its own craft. And, it actually exists in the real Pokémon world? Isn't this just a bunch of half-eaten berries left behind by Pokémon? Normally, consuming it in battle gradually restores HP. But thinking about it, if a Pokémon carries a whole berry, eats part of it during battle, but doesn't finish it, wouldn't that mean it can benefit from both berry healing and leftovers healing at the same time? If a Pokémon holds a large citrus berry, takes a bite to restore HP in a critical moment, and then slowly eats the rest, wouldn't that be broken? Just one bite of leftovers restores a quarter of its HP. It was a joke, but the more Hikaru thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. Speaking of which, the leftovers processing craft: is it just mixing leftover berries together? Like making berry juice? Maybe it doesn't need to be strictly represented as a single half-eaten apple core, like in the games. If turned into juice, it should be called leftover berry juice, and each sip would restore 1/16 of HP. Could the nameless grove be the original habitat of Petalil and its kind? Usually, leftovers are held by Munchlax and Snorlax, but it's listed as being carried by Hiswise mischievous Volturb. That's suspicious. On June 29, under clear skies, the roar of a Charizard echoed from the distant horizon as Hikaru finished his last sculpture. All orders are complete. Exhausted, Hikaru sat at the workshop entrance with Dowblade and Petalil leaning against him. They had worked hard too. Dowblade has completed its work. Gained experience and growth. Gained knowledge. Fluid carving increases the attack speed of cutting moves by 15%. Learned move, Pursuit. Petalil has completed its work. Gained experience and growth. Gained knowledge. Rock breaking power increases both attack and special attack by 10%. Learned move, Grass Knot. Both pieces of knowledge were obtained through repeated labor. From Hikaru's perspective, their effects were quite valuable. With a thundering impact, Charizard landed, breathing heavily. For once, it didn't greet him with its usual roar. Instead, it stared at Hikaru and the two Pokémon, as if it wanted to complain, but held back. Ah, even the customer seems exhausted. Roar. Hikaru, you want to say something? Charizard. It had so much to say. Why does this remote area have so many delivery orders? Flying back and forth is exhausting, you know. Ha, you're definitely thinking something rude. Hikaru could read its expression easily. No need to guess, it was obviously due to the recent increase in orders. Next time, you guys might need to send more Pokémon to pick up shipments. Having only one is too tiring. Oh right, I'll make you some herbal berry juice. It's not bitter at all and tastes great. After returning indoors, Hikaru prepared some herbal berry juice. Dowblade and Petalil drank it and immediately regained their energy. Charizard scratched its head. Initially, it was wary of eating anything that might upset its stomach and disrupt its work. But seeing how happy the other Pokémon were after drinking it, maybe it should try? Hesitantly, Charizard accepted a cup and downed it in one gulp. Roar! A refreshing sensation spread from its throat to its entire body, even clearing its mind. This tastes amazing. Oh, power! Energy is surging back. Roar! Seeing Charizard's excitement, Hikaru grinned. I've been observing you. Since you're so dedicated to work, I guessed your nature must be hardy. That nature doesn't increase or decrease any stat, and it lets you tolerate all flavors. Good, right? This is my exclusive product. You can only get it here. Charizard licked its lips, glancing at the now empty cup, then at Hikaru, looking a bit embarrassed. Want another cup? No problem. Just as Hikaru was about to head back inside, Charizard spoke up. It first praised the wood carving from last time, saying that after following Hikaru's guidance and channeling its power into the carving, its flight speed had dramatically improved. Dude, your items are insane. Now, in all of Smokemore City, this Charizard was the fastest. Its co-workers were stunned. Haha, glad I could help. So, did you finally beat that Dragonite? Hikaru asked, but Charizard let out a deep sigh, shook its head, and pointed at the sky. A dark silhouette appeared high above, rapidly diving down. Hoo! A round belly, tiny whiskers, dainty little wings, a chubby tail, and an adorable face. It was Charizard's co-worker Dragonite, the express delivery Pokémon from the Johto region. Ah, so it used extreme speed. Still can't outmatch it, hey? The second Dragonite had arrived, likely to assist Charizard with deliveries. Hikaru patted Charizard reassuringly before turning to the chubby Dragonite. Do customers get head pats? Hoo-hoo! Dragonite eagerly moved forward, embracing Hikaru. In an instant, he felt completely relaxed from its soft, cushiony body. No wonder Dragonite outperforms Charizard at work. Just look at how friendly it is. Charizard, on the other hand, acts all cool and aloof. Sure, it's diligent, but in the end, people prefer someone both competent and warm like Dragonite. Roar! Charizard glared at Dragonite's enthusiasm, clearly displeased. That's my client. Why are you getting all cuddly with my client? Roar! Charizard nudged Dragonite, signaling it to keep some distance. But instead of getting upset, Dragonite turned around and hugged Charizard, even patting its back. Faced with such an affectionate dragon, Charizard quickly lost its temper, folding its arms with an aloof expression. Petalil and Dowblade had never seen Dragonite before, and it cheerfully picked them up too. Wow! Petalil wiggled its leaves, clearly delighted. Dragonite's body was strange. It had tiny, nearly invisible dragon scales, but it wasn't rough at all. Instead, it was super soft. Yoab! Even Dowblade twitched its scabbard happily. Dragonite's hug was truly pleasant. Too friendly. Alright, I'll leave these shipments to you guys. Hikaru handed out more berry juice to Dragonite, which drank it and showed a delighted expression. Hoo! Seeing its satisfaction, Hikaru glanced at Charizard, who was standing there pretending to be indifferent. He smiled at Dragonite and said, Charizard actually saved this for you. Who? Dragonite turned to look at Charizard, who simply huffed. Fine. You're my co-worker and friend, I guess I can share good stuff with you. Dragonite happily hugged Charizard again. Thus, the affectionate Dragonite and the tsundere hard-working Charizard made the perfect delivery duo, just like protagonists and rivals in a manga. The natural airhead, affectionate Dragonite, and the tsundere, hard-working Charizard. This is just like a manga protagonist and rival duo. Hikaru silently made a mental note. Meanwhile, Charizard crossed its arms, signaling to Dragonite that since the juice was finished, it was time to get to work. Roar roar! Charizard pushed Dragonite away, grabbed the shipments, and flapped its wings to take off into the sky. Dragonite waved its tail at Hikaru as a farewell. However, before leaving, it suddenly seemed to remember something. It rummaged through the pouch it carried and handed something to Hikaru. Hoo! This is... Hikaru took the gift, which turned out to be a golden leaf and a silver leaf. Precious material, shining leaves, 2 types. Description: a mysterious golden leaf. No tree has been found to naturally produce such leaves. Description: a mysterious silver leaf. No tree has been found to naturally produce such leaves. Gained knowledge, +2. Leaf mutation: any trees or grass you cultivate have a 10% chance of growing multiple golden or silver leaves. Mysterious inscription: a form of hidden knowledge. By following its content and applying the corresponding mystical craftsmanship, one can create exceptionally unique items. It is also possible to engrave secret inscriptions onto designated facilities to place seals, requires one of the following powers: psychic, spiritual energy, or aura. Gained craft, +1. Mystic token crafting, a technique that utilizes Pokémon materials, natural materials, and special leaves to create unique certificates. Using special leaves, the corresponding certificates can gain unique abilities. Crafting tickets with these inscriptions allows access to certain special locations, requires the correct inscription technique. Craftable items, weakness policy, silver, evasion policy, gold. Chapter 54. An A-rank craft? Hikaru found it hard to believe. When he looked up again, Dragonite had already soared far into the sky. Dragonite had used extreme speed. This is truly incredible. Whether it's chasing down Charizard or helping me, this Dragonite has been a huge help. Weakness policy and blunder policy were 2 peculiar items. A Pokémon holding weakness policy would have its attack and special attack greatly boosted when hit by a super effective move. Blunder policy, on the other hand, increased the holder's speed significantly if a move missed due to accuracy. Although Hikaru had obtained the crafting method, he also recalled something about shining leaves. They seemed to appear in Heart Gold/Soul Silver when a Pokémon followed its trainer through tall grass. If 5 shining leaves were collected, they could be woven into a shining crown, which would then be registered on the trainer's certificate. But that crown looked like it had far more than just 5 leaves. And the gold leaf and silver leaf were rare items found in Let's Go, Pikachu/Eevee. Hikaru hadn't expected them to be related to the shining leaves. Though he had acquired an A-rank craft, there was no way to make use of it for now. As his excitement gradually faded, his computer chimed with a familiar beeping sound. Petalil and Dowblade instinctively turned toward the workshop's door. It's fine. I'm exhausted too. Let's all take a break first. Hikaru patted Petalil's head and then turned to Dowblade. How about I sharpen your blades later? Yawoo! Yahoob! Both consciousnesses of Dowblade were thrilled. Sharpening its blades was a form of maintenance, which to Dowblade was like relaxation. Petalil had been feeling tired, but upon hearing about blade maintenance, she suddenly became excited again. Wait, could Pokémon also be polished? Maybe she could try it too. Let's rest for now. Hikaru hurriedly urged Petalil, seeing her more energetic than even himself. If she didn't rest, her trainer might collapse first. She was supposed to have a stubborn nature, but she was acting like she had diligent instead. As Hikaru prepared to return to the workshop, he suddenly spotted some large mushrooms growing in the corner. Mushrooms grew quickly, and just one rainfall could make them flourish. In the old workshop, a structure of mixed wood and stone, they thrived even better. Rare material, mochi mushrooms. Effect, large and mature mushrooms. A favorite food of monster egg-type and dragon-type Pokémon, capable of attracting them to wherever they are placed. Knowledge acquired, mushrooms at your doorstep. Mushrooms grow more easily near your home. Craftable, mushroom bait bundle. Hey! This is a unique mushroom from the Hisui region, and it's growing near my workshop. He had stumbled upon a treasure at his doorstep. However, neither Dowblade nor Petalil liked eating these mushrooms. Hikaru harvested them and, seeing there were still plenty left, decided to get some pots later to cultivate them properly. Hopefully, it wouldn't turn out like the research lab incident, where wild mushrooms thrived in the wild but failed when carefully cultivated. Back inside, Hikaru used food processing techniques to mix the mushrooms with other ingredients. After some thought, he added a bit of soft sand. His Pokémon didn't use monster egg or dragon-type moves, but in bait food recipes, different materials could be mixed in freely. After all, Pokémon ate a wide variety of things, unlike humans. On a whim, he also tossed in a revival herb leaf. Crafting complete. Crafted food, mushroom bait bundle. Effect, a blend of special mushrooms, soft sand, berries, revival herb leaves, and bait materials. Strongly attracts ground, monster, and dragon-type Pokémon. Additional effect 1, Earthen Nourishment greatly boosts ground-type energy for a limited time, aiding in their growth. Additional effect 2, Terra Essence ground and monster-type Pokémon that eat this will enter a state of peak vitality. Their health improves, training becomes more effective, and they are more likely to learn new moves. So, the more materials added, the better the effects. Compared to last time's Verdant Nourishment, this Earthen Nourishment food even had an additional bonus effect. Maybe adding Revival Herb had created some unexpected synergy? Just as Hikaru finished the new recipe, his email notification rang. A new email? Another wild customer. The workshop was thriving, and more clients were placing orders. Subject, Inquiry about the Purity Pendant. Hikaru raised an eyebrow at the sender's ID, Mythology Researcher. Was this a ruins enthusiast? The craftsmanship of this pendant is very similar to a particular style I'm familiar with. May I ask about its crafting method? Sorry, that's a trade secret, Hikaru replied politely. The sender didn't push further. I see. That was my mistake. However, I would still like to purchase this pendant. The effect prevents stat reduction in battle sounds incredible, almost like the clear body ability some Pokémon have. Hikaru began his pitch. The price is 500,000 Poke dollars. Since this is a special edition purity pendant, made with rare materials, it not only prevents stat reduction but also enhances mental focus and relieves accumulated fatigue. The core material was ancient crystal, a rare relic from Rock Mountain ruins. Until he found more, the stock was extremely limited. No problem. Can I buy more than one? Hikaru blinked in surprise before replying. Apologies, but due to material rarity, I can only sell 2 at most. That's fine. I'll take 2. Just like that, a 1 million Poke dollar deal was sealed. Hikaru hadn't expected such a wealthy customer. But considering the ID, the buyer was likely a ruins explorer, a profession known for deep pockets. Definitely a ruins enthusiast. His unique engraving style must have caught the buyer's attention. Do you need anything else? I also sell items related to Pokémon training and battle strategies. There are many interesting items in your shop, but I have trouble choosing. Hikaru offered a suggestion. If you're unsure about each item's effects, I can provide recommendations. Also, bulk purchases come with discounts. What Pokémon do you train? Ghost, Steel, Water, Grass, Ground, Fairy. That's quite a well-rounded team. For Ghost types, I recommend Spell Tag and Spooky Cloth. The former boosts Ghost type moves, while the latter enhances their energy. For Grass types, I suggest Verdant Nourishment, which greatly increases Grass type energy for a period, aiding their growth. For Ground types, Soft Sand boosts their move power, and my new earthen nourishment food enhances their training efficiency and overall energy. As for steel, water, and fairy types, I don't have specialized training items right now, but you might be interested in ancient wooden carvings. These carvings can enhance a Pokémon's strengths or compensate for weaknesses, but be aware that each carving is single-use, so choose its enhancement wisely. Masago Town Professor Yamanashi's lab. A tall woman in a black coat, with golden hair and black accessories, clicked the purchase button. She was none other than Cynthia, the champion of Sinnoh. Just as you said, this shop has many intriguing items, Cynthia remarked. Though I still have my doubts. The descriptions sound incredibly powerful. If they are all accurate, then perhaps this craftsman possesses techniques passed down from ancient myths. She glanced at Professor Rowan, who had previously purchased a certain sculpture. Although it hadn't arrived yet, Cynthia had rushed over upon hearing it might relate to mythology. One glance at the shop's photos, and she immediately recognized something she had been searching for. A Pokémon depicted in ancient myths. In the Salation Ruins murals, there is a massive light at the center. At 3 points surrounding this light are the representations of the 3 lake guardians. Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf. But I have another interpretation. Cynthia smiled slightly, gently brushing a strand of hair that had fallen over her face. The 3 points forming a triangle could actually represent Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina. Professor Rowan was momentarily taken aback, still holding a cup of steaming tea. Giratina. Yes. Based on my recent research, I have identified it as the 3rd legendary Pokémon corresponding to Dialga and Palkia. It governs the distortion world. I have confirmed this from an ancient text. And at the center of the Salation Ruins mural, the enormous light represents the entity that created this world. Throughout Sinnoh, various stone tablets contain inscriptions. From these, we can infer that there exists a being even more powerful than Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina. We don't yet have detailed information on Giratina, but it seems that the chaos of the distortion world is caused by the instability of time and space. The mural in the Salation Ruins appears to be conveying an important message. That is my interpretation as a researcher of mythology. Professor Rowan glanced at the computer screen. The shop listing for the Arceus sculpture now showed that it was out of stock. You think this Pokémon is connected to Dialga and Palkia? Yes. However, I will conduct further research once the item arrives. Cynthia tilted her head slightly, a faint smile appearing on her lips. Finally, I feel like I have touched upon a true fragment of mythology. Rare individuals and fascinating discoveries. The stories passed down on this land must be witnessed firsthand. Oh, and that pendant is also worth investigating. I just sent details about it to my grandmother, and she mentioned that it closely resembles the traditional talismans of Celestic Town. That means it's an ancient charm. This craftsman must have deep connections to Celestic Town's history. Once the pendant arrives and I analyze it, I might consider inviting them for a discussion. Actually, that was my grandmother's suggestion. An artisan preserving ancient craftsmanship. Professor Rowan mused. That reminds me of something I came across during my research in Kanto. In the past, back when Sinnoh was still called Hisui, I found traces of a peculiar legend. Are you referring to the people of the Celestial Accord? Cynthia immediately picked up on the reference. I've come across similar stories. A long time ago, many ancient Sinnoh people left this region and traveled to Johto. They settled in a place called Shinto, bringing Sinnoh's culture to Johto. A land where Sinnoh and Johto's ancient traditions merge. Very little information is available on that region. Could this craftsman be? It seems that soon, I may need to visit Johto myself. Chapter 55. Your sculptures are truly amazing. I love collecting these ancient statues. What? You're saying these are replicas? No, I already know they're replicas. But even so, these are crafted so well that they're indistinguishable from real antiques. This is also a form of valuable artwork. I'm willing to pay a high price to purchase them all. Ah, I see. You're selling them to others as well. My apologies for being presumptuous. In that case, I'll just buy one of each. What? Some of them are already out of stock? That's such a shame. When will you be restocking them? I'll be waiting at any time. Then I'll take just one sculpture for now. After seeing off the last customer, whose ID was Mythology Researcher, there was no time to mourn the departure of a loyal customer before a new one arrived. This time, the customer's ID was practically an open declaration, Bourgeois Meyer. So, it's Mr. Bourgeois Meyer from the Unova region. Seriously, who uses their real name online? The Bourgeois family was a wealthy household residing in Undella town, Unova. The family had 6 members, all of whom were passionate about collecting ancient antiques. This time, they had found the shop through a friend's recommendation and were deeply impressed by the craftsmanship. Undella town, Unova? Oh right, there was indeed a customer from that area, ancient explorer, wasn't it? Customers recommending each other, this means my customer base is only going to grow bigger. But my initial goal was to dominate the Johto region, so why do all these wild customers keep coming from other regions? Do the people in Johto not have any demand for battle-related items? So far, my only customers from here have been the one from Ecruteak City and 2 of the Elite 4. And what about the other gym leaders? Hey! As Hikaru was pondering this, a new email arrived. It was from a previous customer in Ecruteak City, someone who had made a direct purchase without much interaction. The Reaper cloth I bought from you last time worked wonders for channeling spirits, so I'd like to purchase another batch, along with some spell tags. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Morty, the gym leader of Ecruteak City, and a seeker of truth. It seems that you, too, are a powerful spirit medium. If you have the time, I'd love for you to visit Ecruteak City. I'll prepare tea and a gift to welcome you. Oh, so it's Morty. This guy has quite a rich background in the games, anime, and manga, especially because of his identity as both a spirit medium and a seeker of Ho-Oh. His title of Seeker of Truth basically makes him a high-level spirit medium. Through rigorous training, he's gained a mysterious ability called clairvoyance. Wait, does that mean he can spy on me like Nanu? Hikaru narrowed his eyes and scratched his head. People with weird abilities like this always make you feel like you're being monitored by a hidden camera. Alright, if I have the time, I'll definitely visit, probably in the fall or towards the end of the year. Morty seemed delighted by the reply. Then I'll be eagerly awaiting your visit. Also, I've recommended your charms and spiritual cloths to my fellow spirit mediums. After using them, they were all quite shocked at their effectiveness. I expect they'll be coming to purchase from you soon. Ah, thank you so much. Hikaru quickly typed out his response. Customers sharing their experiences and recommending products to others, it's a positive cycle. As for Ecruteak City, Hikaru had already been planning to visit. The main reason was the process of crafting a clear bell, and unknowingly, he was close to gathering all the necessary materials. The only thing missing was the woven net technique, which was the most crucial step in the entire process. Should I stop by Azalea Town and visit the Iron Master first? But right now, I still can't leave. TL, for the people that don't know, Iron Master is Kurt, the one that made Pokeballs in Johto. His name in Japanese is Gentetsu. That's why people there call him Iron Master. Tetsu equals iron. Traveling from Sinnoh back to Johto wasn't easy. Just reaching the nearest cities, Blackthorn City or Cherry Grove City, would take a lot of time. Walking back wasn't an option. If he were to head to Johto, leaving around late August or mid-September would be ideal. By October, this place would be covered in snow, giving the land time to recover. Speaking of which, if he could build a greenhouse, he could continue growing crops even during Sinnoh's harsh winters. Johto had a unique method of growing berries using berry planters. In the games, berries couldn't be planted directly in Johto's soil, they could only be grown in these planters. They looked like glass-covered flower pots at first glance, but they were actually quite complex. The soil in these planters likely came from either Sinnoh or Hone. Different regions had different soil qualities, which made Hikaru think about the unique forests of each region. If I had a large flying-type Pokémon, I could travel freely between regions. It would be so much more convenient. Right now, though, it's kind of a hassle. Blackthorn City has Charizard flight services. You ride in a hot air balloon while a Charizard pulls you forward. Not having a flying-type Pokémon for transportation was definitely inconvenient. But if he were to choose one, it had to be big and strong enough to carry him over long distances. Plenty of Pokémon could fly, but only large and sturdy ones like Big Charizard or Dragonite could carry a person over long distances. Speaking of large flying-type Pokémon in Johto, there was, of course, Skarmory. But compared to Skarmory, Galar's Corviknight was the superior option in every way. Now that he thought about it, Doublade's evolved form, Aegislash, could technically hover and carry someone at low altitudes, but it didn't exactly seem safe. After dealing with the 2 new customers, Hikaru took out some berries from his latest harvest. Thanks to Celebi's power, these berries looked even better than naturally grown ones. He handed some to Petalil and called over Dowblade, who was still chopping wood. Let's all have some berries. Well, actually, I'm the only one eating. Petalil and Dowblade absorbed nutrients instead of eating in the traditional sense. Remember, don't finish them all. Leave some behind. Though the two Pokémon didn't understand why, they still followed instructions. Hikaru then bit into an assortment of berries: citrus, pecha, oran, rao ape, lum, uxa, babari, chopple, all of them were partially eaten. Dowblade had the most unique way of consuming them. Its ribbon-like arms grabbed 2 berries at once and absorbed their essence, leaving behind shriveled husks and seeds. Soon, all that remained was a pile of berry scraps. Hikaru carefully examined each one. No reaction. No reaction. No reaction. Strange. Do these not count as leftover food? Then, as he picked up the first berry he had eaten, a thought suddenly surfaced in his mind. Material: leftover food, high-quality citrus berry. Description: a partially eaten berry left untouched for a while. Due to prolonged exposure, its nutrients have begun to deplete, altering its composition. Its taste has worsened, and it only restores 1/16 of a Pokémon's HP. Crafting unlocked, +1. Unique leftover cooking: C+A technique to combine various leftovers, partially eaten, or aged berries into special dishes. The form of the dish is flexible. When a Pokémon holds and eats it before battle, its HP will gradually recover during combat. The effect also works outside of battle. If a Pokémon with healing moves assists in crafting, the resulting food will have additional special effects. If a Pokémon with healing moves helps. Oh, wait. I remember something. Back in the Hisui era, Pokémon techniques were used in cooking for flavoring. Without hesitation, Hikaru grabbed some cookware and set up a campfire, tossing some berry scraps into a pot. Petalil, use pollen puff on the food. But gently. Petalil looked incredulous. Pet. Despite its curiosity, it followed instructions. A shimmering golden red puff of pollen drifted into the pot, delicately landing inside. As soon as it did, the food underwent a mysterious change. Hikaru ladled out some of the thick berry stew to observe. Crafted food: leftover berry stew, floral soup. Description: a stew made from various leftover or aged berries. It has a powerful healing effect and attracts nearby Pokémon. Effect: Pokémon that eat it will gradually recover HP during battle. Bonus effect: enhanced by pollen puff. Eating this permanently boosts a Pokémon's dexterity, small boost. Grass and bug-type Pokémon also receive an energy boost. Dexterity? That's a Pokémon's physical attribute. Speed affects movement speed. Strength determines impact force. Dexterity influences precision in special actions. Endurance affects fatigue levels. Jumping power affects height. Chapter 56. Oh, this is really nice. Hikaru gently stroked Petalil's leaves. In the future, you can help out when we're cooking, too. Petty. Petalil let out a cheerful cry. At the same time, Hikaru's mind received corresponding feedback. Petalil has completed a craftsmanship task. Gained experience and growth. Learned the move, Weather Ball. Gained knowledge, +1. Seasoning participation: food seasoned by Petalil restores +10% stamina. Wow! Petalil's small skirt-like leaves twirled up. It could feel it just a moment ago. It had suddenly learned a new move and had become a bit stronger. Yoab. Dowblade also expressed its approval of Petalil. It then extended 2 ribbon-like arms and began absorbing the essence of the berries. The food visibly vanished before their eyes, and Dowblade could feel its operational precision improving. This sensation, what a fantastic feeling! Meanwhile, Hikaru was staring in astonishment at the notifications. Weather Ball. Wait a second, this means Sunny Day and Weather Ball. Even a grass-type Pokémon could now unleash a fire-type attack. June 30th, cloudy. Hikaru gradually put up the recently made products for sale, marking them properly. High-quality medicinal herbs: energy root, revival herb, sun moss, and charcoal. The double pickles were also nearly done. Pickling takes a month, so they still needed a few more days. There were also some wooden carvings. However, Hikaru didn't list the character carvings for sale after all. the individuals being sculpted might not appreciate their likeness being sold online. If these kinds of sculptures were to be sold, the sculpted individual's approval would be necessary. As for the wooden carvings, Hikaru decided to experiment using oak wood from a specific tree. Crafted item, small ancient wood carving style of the capital ruins. Description, a wooden carving made in imitation of ancient sculptures, using high-grade oak wood. The carving depicts Petalil. Item effect, special defense prayer. By praying to the wooden carving, it will respond to a specific Pokémon and enhance its special defense. Using oak wood will designate the ability to enhance special defense. At that moment, Diglett's voice came from outside. Hikaru immediately put down his laptop and headed to the kitchen, where he saw Petalil cooking berry soup. Petty. Petalil watched as Hikaru took some sand radish from the ingredient cabinet. What's he planning to do? It's because the Diglett have arrived. They helped till the land for me before, and this time, I need their help to dig up some important items. Don't let the berry soup cook for too long. Wow wow. Petalil nodded its head rapidly, showing that it was being careful. Hikaru handed the freshly carved wooden sculpture to Petalil. The Pokémon shook the leaves on its head, and in a flash of dazzling light, its special defense 4 reached the maximum. Outside the house, Hikaru carried a bunch of sand radish outside. Diglett liked eating vegetables and plant roots, so sand radish should be something they enjoy. As expected, Dugtrio arrived, leading a few Diglett along. However, they seemed a bit puzzled when they saw the herb field. Why are these herbs growing so slowly? It's because of special circumstances I already harvested once. Hikaru explained with a smile while glancing at the surrounding fields. Perhaps it was due to Celebi accelerating growth once, but the second batch of crops was sprouting much faster than the first. The land itself seemed to have received some kind of unique enhancement. Daigo. Dugtrio's 3 heads showed expressions of shock. What? The village hasn't even had its first harvest yet, and you're already on your second batch. These are a thank you gift for you guys. They were harvested from my field last time. Also, I have a favor to ask. Hikaru handed the sand radish over, and Dugtrio immediately recognized what they were. The Pokémon were delighted. Plant roots. Alright, so what's the task? I want to find a type of glowing clay. If you discover any while digging, could you bring it to me? I have plenty of sand radish and berry vegetables. I'll trade them for the light clay. Daigo. Dugtrio nodded all 3 heads in agreement. The Diglett let out cheerful cries. Glowing clay, hey? We'll keep an eye out for it while digging. The Diglett accepted Hikaru's request. They had only come by to check on the farm, so after munching down a huge pile of sand radish, they packed up the rest and took them along. By the way, is this little hole in the ground you're doing? Hikaru pointed at a small hole in the herb field. Dugtrio looked confused and turned to ask the other Diglett. However, all of them denied having been here in the past few days. That meant, the hole had nothing to do with the Diglett. Hikaru's curiosity deepened. Although the hole wasn't causing any harm and the surrounding herbs hadn't been disturbed, it still felt like someone had moved in. I should pay attention to this over the next few nights. However, the small hole didn't appear every day, and its timing seemed random. To discover its origin, he would need long-term observation and a little luck. But he still had work to do during the day, so staying up all night wasn't an option. Oh well, I'll just see how lucky I am at night. Maybe I'll catch the culprit in action. Hikaru made a note in his mind. Just like in the anime, when Dugtrio and Diglett carried things, they balanced them on their heads. Watching them leave happily, Hikaru decided that he needed to venture into the forest again soon. Compared to the mysterious hole, gathering materials was far more important. Perhaps he might even find some rare materials. The crafts I currently have but haven't used yet are flame forging, mystic token crafting, apricorn processing, glass smelting, tool manufacturing, ice sculpture crafting. Since I have forging and tool making skills, I should create some useful tools. Hikaru reviewed the crafts he had mastered but not yet applied and decided that his next task was to forge unique tools. Although he already owned common exploration and production tools such as a pickaxe and entrenching shovel, the unique tool-making technique allowed him to mix Pokémon materials to create specialized tools with unique abilities. As Hikaru recalled the details, a list of Pokémon materials and their respective crafting processes surfaced in his mind. Such a rich selection. Hikaru opened the forge room and began preparing materials for forging. The iron scraps and minerals he had previously collected had all been stored in the forge. Meanwhile, Dowblade and Petalil sneakily peeked from behind the door, watching Hikaru at work. The berry soup was ready. Star, X2. Oh? Are you guys interested in forging? Hikaru's first glance went to Dowblade last time, it had run away immediately upon entering the forge. After all, as a steel-type Pokémon, it naturally feared fire. But Petalil, a pure grass-type Pokémon, was also interested in forging? No, it was probably just eager to participate in his work. Such adorable and hard-working little ones. Chapter 57. Flames rose within the forge, the scorching charcoal spewing out embers. Scrap iron and ore were gradually melted and hammered. Neither the previous owner nor Hikaru had any knowledge of blacksmithing, it was completely unfamiliar territory. Fortunately, acquiring the craftsmanship also imparted the proper production process. Moreover, Hikaru had previously obtained some insights into blacksmithing from the Rocky Mountain ruins. Though the method of acquiring them had been somewhat mysterious, it proved incredibly useful. With both factors combined, even a complete novice in forging could craft items comparable to those of a skilled artisan. The rising flames symbolized power, something that could easily shake the worldview of weaker beings. The boiling firelight, the forceful hammer, the solid anvil, each strike carried a raw and intense impact. Before long, Hikaru had forged a pair of iron gloves. After stitching them together with leather, the first forged tool was completed. Crafting completed. Crafted item, Destruction Gloves. Description: a tool crafted using Pokémon materials and scrap iron, forged with special flames and processing techniques. It enhances steel-type energy. Item effect: rapid digging increases excavation speed by 20% and grants a unique usage of dig. Dig? Is this a move? Its crafting materials include the spikes and claws of Sand Slash. However, due to the fire-based forging process, it only enhances fire, steel, and psychic-type energy, making it incapable of boosting ground-type power. Hikaru wiped the sweat off his forehead, took a short break, and looked at the steel gloves in his hands with amazement. At some point, 2 Pokémon had wandered into the forge. They gathered around the special gloves, exchanging thoughts, seemingly sharing their own opinions. However, upon hearing Doublade's words, Hikaru immediately shook his head. This guy was still preaching its whole king spiel. Time to check out the newly obtained materials instead. Material: Spark Scales. Acquisition locations: Ancient Castle, Unova, Volcarona, Great Crater, Paldea, Volcarona, or obtained from a Larvista evolving into Volcarona. Corresponding craft: Ancient Kill Technique, can be used to create the Ancient Pot. Ancient Kill Firing? Good stuff. Can Volcarona's scales be bought online? Probably not. Well, since I'll be heading to Unova at some point, I'll just save this craft for a few months later. Dowblade, forging, hey? Back in the day, my X2 body was forged as well. At that time, I wasn't even a Pokémon. Anything the new king forges is bound to have incredible powers. Petalil, poking the gloves, you weren't a Pokémon before? Then what were you, Dowblade Senpai? Dowblade, have you ever heard the tale of the ancient sword's awakening? Dowblade swayed both of its ribbon-like arms. An ancient sword, weathered from countless battles, becomes inhabited by the soul of the dead and transforms into a Pokémon. That's me. But there's a misconception, I wasn't a human soul. I naturally became a Pokémon through the mystical energies of the world. Many ghost-type Pokémon are born this way. Petalil, clenching tiny fists, then you must have been an amazing sword before. Dowblade, no, to be honest, it's embarrassing. After becoming a Pokémon, I was captured by a wandering sorcerer with strange magic and presented as a tribute to a king. Later, I was chosen by a knight to be his Pokémon. I learned some underhanded, truly practical battle techniques from that knight. But for some reason, I was eventually left to gather dust in a warehouse. By the time I woke up, the kingdom had already fallen. Petalil, shocked at. That's so unlucky. Dowblade, resolute, exactly. That's why my dream now is to support a powerful leader and help him become the new king. Dowblade, right now, the kingdom is still in its infancy. If you join in earnest, you could be among the founding ministers. Petalil, ears twitching, no, Senpai, I don't understand. What's so great about being a minister? If I'm following Hikaru, aren't I already with him? Dowblade, stunned at the benefits, right, the benefits. What are they? Oh. You get to command other Pokémon. Petalil, confused, but I don't want to command other Pokémon. I'm just me. Why should I order others around? Dowblade, ugh. Dowblade, wait. Oh no. I don't have a post-establishment plan for my kingdom. Dowblade fell into deep contemplation. None of the Pokémon were interested in its grand nation-building scheme. Petalil only cared about the gloves Hikaru had crafted in her own work. If forged items have special abilities, they could be quite useful in daily life. The initial intent behind crafting these tools was, of course, to make work easier. Also, should I forge some protective gear for Petalil? After so many days of training, Petalil had grown significantly stronger. Combined with her own knowledge and experience, she would no longer be as helpless in battle as before. However, Hikaru still wanted to prepare some defensive measures for her. He searched his mind for special items that could enhance grass-type Pokémon. Loaded dice and bullet seed? But loaded dice seemed to be a mechanical item, described as a die that always rolls favorable numbers. Hikaru didn't have much knowledge of mechanics yet. Forging protective gear seemed like the more practical option. Before long, Hikaru had completed some protective gear, and to his surprise, his thoughts led to an unexpected result. Crafting completed. Crafted item, small protective armor, steel, dot. Description, prevents the usual effects from contact-based attacks. Enhances steel-type energy and move power. Negates, HP loss from rocky helmet, poison from baneful bunker, HP loss from spiky shield, damage from rough skin, iron barbs, and aftermath, and secondary effects of flame body, static, cute charm, and perish body. Item effect, rebound increases defense by 15% and reflects incoming impact force. Note, excessive damage may cause the armor to break instantly. Oh! Hikaru's eyes lit up before handing the small protective armor to Petalil. Try it on. Petalil curiously took the armor, though her tiny hands made it difficult to equip, so Hikaru helped her put it on. Once fully equipped, the hem of her small dress was reinforced with iron plates, and a tiny helmet adorned her head, with 3 leaves extending from holes at the top. Wow wow! It felt slightly heavy. Petalil swayed from side to side, gradually adapting to her new armor. At the same time, she felt as though she had acquired a new ability, though it wasn't the same feeling as learning a move. Petalil looked at Dowblade. Pet. Dowblade senpai, can you battle with me? Yo! Dowblade snapped out of its deep thought, X2, adjusted its stance, then pointed at Petalil while glancing at Hikaru. No problem. This is the perfect time to test the equipment. Dowblade, use Shadow Sneak. Dowblade let out a murmuring sound. Its blades glowed with a purple-white aura, and both swords shot forward, striking Petalil directly. At that moment, Petalil instinctively activated the new ability granted by her armor. The steel-type energy in the armor gathered the surrounding ambient energy. Rebound. Dowblade was suddenly hit by the force of its own attack. Pet. Wow wow. Petalil bounced happily. Seeing Dowblade get knocked back by her own counterattack filled her with joy. In her excitement, she leapt onto Hikaru's shoulder, rubbing her face against his. Wow wow. Thank you, Hikaru. Meanwhile, Dowblade, now wide-eyed, X2, stared at Hikaru with longing. Shouldn't I get one too? Hikaru sighed, patting Petalil while glancing at Dowblade, who looked somewhat dejected. Seeing this, he reassured it. All right. Next time, I'll find a way to craft something similar for you. If modifying your sheath is out of the question, I'll just have to enhance your crossguard and hilt. That would actually be a good thing. It would help distinguish you from other Pokémon of the same kind, though, to be honest, there aren't any other Pokémon like you in this region anyway. Now that I think about it, various tools seem to have different applications. Some are related to Pokémon moves, while others aren't. I suppose the tool's function has to match a move for it to work. Yo! Dowblade nodded eagerly, clearly stating it wanted the most stylish crossguard ever. As for the effects it could have, if he was lucky enough to forge a tool imbued with the power of a Pokémon move, what if he could? Dowblade recalled hearing about a certain move before, Behemoth Blade, a move where a sword was swung with overwhelming power. Maybe Hikaru could try forging something like that? Hikaru nearly spat out his drink. You know about Behemoth Blade? Were you brought here from Galar? Hikaru suddenly realized that, while Dao Blade had been a prized treasure from ages past, it had never mentioned where it originally came from. It seemed even Dao Blade itself had no idea. Which meant, back in the Age of Kingdoms, there were no regional classifications. Yopo. Sure enough, Dao Blade looked completely clueless. It had only heard of the move from the mysterious traveler who had captured it as a treasure. That move can't be replicated on a weapon. Wait, actually, maybe it can. Hikaru had been about to reject the idea, but then it hit him: if he could obtain Zacian's fur, along with the rusty sword containing ancient, decayed iron, maybe he really could forge a unique tool imbued with behemoth blade. Zacian, crowned sword, plus rusty sword plus iron head equals the king's blade plus behemoth blade. The formula was already set. If he truly managed to gather these materials and craft a crossguard infused with behemoth blade's power, or even attach it to a lumber axe, would that mean he could use behemoth blade to chop down trees? Oh, this actually sounds really interesting. Chapter 58. Since we're all prepared, let's head into the forest tomorrow and help you reclaim your habitat. Even though your companions have left, once you reclaim your home, they'll surely return. Hikaru suddenly spoke, and Petalil, who had been rubbing its cheek excitedly, paused. Hikaru gently lifted Petalil from his shoulder. Their clear eyes met, and a storm of emotions swirled in Petalil's mind. The day had finally arrived. From the very beginning, this human had mistaken her for an oddish. Then, he had taught her how to grow stronger. He helped her learn new moves, trained her tirelessly, carved wooden sculptures for her, and gave her plenty of berries and food. Now, he even crafted a tiny set of armor for her. If she defeated that Volturb, did that mean she would truly have to leave her Pokeball? Leave the workshop? Petalil's enthusiasm suddenly faded. Hey? What's wrong? Hikaru asked, confused, as Petalil leapt from his hands. The 3 leaves atop her head drooped slightly, reflecting her melancholic mood. If she won, she would have to leave the workshop. But if she didn't, the Volturb would continue to occupy her home. In that case, was there even a reason to fight anymore? She no longer had a reason to battle. Hikaru noticed Petalil's sadness and seemed to understand something. He then asked softly. Could it be that you don't want to leave here? Petalil turned to glance at Hikaru, then at the ever-indifferent Dao Blade. Leave, or stay? She was deeply torn. Don't worry. Hikaru's reassuring voice made Petalil look up again. Whether you want to leave or stay, I won't stop you. You can take your time and think about it. Hikaru paused for a moment before continuing. Just do what you truly want to do. Do what you believe is right. The leaves atop Petalil's head slowly lifted again. She was still lost in thought, but her expression remained melancholic. She didn't want to leave. Seeing this, Dao Blade finally snapped out of its usual nonchalant state. Oh. So you don't want to leave? You've grown attached to the workshop. Dao Blade floated over and gently brushed Petalil's leaves with its ribbon-like arms. Yopo. Ah, the meetings and partings of this world are always like this. Sometimes, people are just fleeting passers-by in each other's lives. And isn't that the same for me? My entire kingdom became nothing more than a brief episode in my sword's journey. From the king to the knights, everyone fell in the laughter and chaos of battle. Petalil asked Dao Blade, didn't it have a previous trainer? When he was gone, didn't it feel anything? Dao Blade responded that although its previous trainer was still a recent memory, from a chronological standpoint, 1,000 years had already passed. That trainer had long since turned to dust. Sometimes, one must face reality and choose to do what they find meaningful. It had already found a new way of life. The memories of its kingdom would slowly fade, and compared to its past, the present suited it far better. Besides, it never had a particularly deep bond with its previous trainer after all. In the end, it was just left to rust away in a storage room. Yopo. Simply put, if reclaiming your habitat is something you believe in, then just do it. And after that, you can always come back. Don't worry about whether other Pokémon will take over again. If they do, just go up and smack them twice. Eventually, they'll stop trying. Dao Blade's crude yet straightforward advice made Petalil laugh through her tears, and Hikaru stepped forward. Petalil hopped toward Hikaru, her 3 leaves swaying. If you still want to live with me, Dao Blade's method actually works, Hikaru smiled. The choice is entirely yours. We should always follow our hearts and never make choices that we'll regret. Pet. Petalil lifted the hem of her little leafy dress, psyching herself up. And slowly, an idea began forming in her heart. Yes, just as Dao Blade said. Pet. Even if new Pokémon came to live in her habitat, it would be because she had chosen to abandon it, not because it was taken from her, just as she had once chosen to leave behind Lillygant and the other Petalil. That was her choice. Abandoning something of her own volition and having it stolen were two entirely different things. She would fight and then return here. She did not want to leave. Pokémon with a stubborn nature can sometimes overcome emotional struggles more quickly, Hikaru chuckled. Being stubborn wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Compared to timid or reserved Pokémon, they were stronger and more determined, unwilling to give up on what they set their minds to. All right, that's the spirit. Tomorrow, we'll get ready and challenge that Volturb. Pet. Hikaru extended his hand, and Petalil raised her tiny leafy dress in response. The two of them high-fived. Dao Blade also lifted its ribbon-like arms, wrapping around their hands in agreement. Yo! Yopo! See? The advice of a 1,000-year-old Pokémon is still the best. Sometimes, you youngsters should listen to the wisdom of us ancient beings. That said, it's time for something important. Hikaru stood up, walked over to his workbench, and picked up the Arceus stone carving. But he hesitated. There had already been an unusual evolution-related move learned before. That was Weather Ball. Technically speaking, Petalil shouldn't be able to learn Weather Ball. It was a move she could only acquire after evolving regardless of which form she took. Yet during their training, she had accidentally gained the move. This meant that through hard work, it was possible to learn post-evolution moves, albeit not particularly powerful ones. No, Weather Ball was actually quite strong, it was just situational, dependent on the weather. Some Pokémon in the wild could learn evolution-exclusive moves under special circumstances. With that in mind, Hikaru nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps Petalil had an unexpectedly high learning potential? If so, what kind of powerful move would the Arceus stone carving grant her? Would it be that dance? Hikaru led his two Pokémon and the carving outside the workshop to an open area. Petalil knew that this stone held an extraordinary power crafted by Hikaru himself, yet always kept off limits. Now was the time to use it. What kind of power would it grant her? Petalil wondered. This is the Arceus stone carving. It represents a Pokémon said to have created the world, Hikaru explained to the two Pokémon. Both Petalil and Dao Blade were stunned. A Pokémon that created the world? Could such a Pokémon truly exist? No, at that point, wasn't it more of a god than a Pokémon? So now, it's time to understand its power. You can feel the energy within the carving, right? Touch it, and then. It's all up to you. It will grant you a powerful move, one that only Pokémon can learn. Petalil didn't hesitate. She reached out and touched the Arceus stone carving. A grand, ancient melody echoed in her heart, a song that seemed to transcend thousands of years, originating from the ancient times when the people of the divine capital played it to honor Arceus. Time eroded everything, yet this melody had traveled across millennia to the present. A mysterious energy surged from the air around her, and Petalil's body began to glow a radiance much like the light of evolution. As the ancient melody resonated, Petalil closed her eyes, immersing herself in its rhythm. Countless visions filled her mind. The distant sky, ancient mountains, tranquil forests, and long-lost ruins. Light shone in the heavens, restoring the ruins to their former glory. Humans and Pokémon alike danced in celebration, lifting torches high. Their voices illuminated the sky, the interplay of light and flames dazzling. Their dance carried an indescribable rhythm and power. They used music and dance to showcase the divine's might. And then, Petalil released the carving, an understanding dawning upon her. She instinctively mimicked the ancient people and Pokémon, recreating their dance. Petalil twirled and leaped, performing a lively dance. Faintly, the ancient music accompanied her movements, leaving Hikaru and Dao Blade in awe. Then, a powerful force surged within Petalil as the radiance fully blossomed. Pet. She completed the dance, the light gradually fading. Petalil's leafy dress swirled. She now understood how to use this formidable move. Petalil has learned Victory Dance. With Victory Dance mastered, using a Sunstone will guarantee evolution into the Hisuian form. Hikaru smiled. She had learned the noble Victory Dance and solidified her evolutionary path. The door to a new world had opened for her. Hikaru gently stroked Petalil's leaves before carefully placing the Arceus stone carving back inside the workshop. However, at that moment, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed something unusual on the workbench, the symbolic tablet. The inscriptions on the stone had shifted, rearranging themselves into a new word. Regirock, the legendary titan. The symbolic tablet sometimes predicts upcoming special Pokémon-related events. So, after Celebi, the next one to appear is the legendary titan, Regirock. Chapter 59. Of course, before tomorrow arrives, today's work still needed to continue. Hikaru stared at the symbolic tablet, deep in thought, wondering what kind of encounter he would have with another legendary Pokémon this time. But for now, he decided not to dwell on it. The beeping of the computer urged Hikaru, as well as Petalil and Dowblade, back to work. This busy life was exhausting, but it truly felt fulfilling. Petalil bounced around, following Hikaru to the computer. Along the way, she suddenly asked Dowblade a question. Pet. If your ideal kingdom becomes a reality, does that mean all Pokémon will work together with Hikaru? Dowblade, slightly confused, responded. Yo. A king does not work. Hey. Petalil tilted her head in confusion. Pet. If a king doesn't work, then why do they get to be called a king? Shouldn't a true king work alongside everyone else and lead by example? Yo. Dowblade was stumped, now questioning its own beliefs. That's right. Why should the new kingdom follow the old ways? Thinking about it now, it never really understood why kings didn't have to work. It was just something that had always been the case, so it had accepted it as normal. But now, it seemed kind of wrong. One isn't acknowledged as a king after becoming one, but rather, only those who are acknowledged become kings. Yes, that's it. Yo. Dowblade declared that it had discovered a new principle for building its ideal kingdom. A place where both humans and Pokémon could live without worries, where everyone had their own responsibilities. That was the world it wanted to create. Hikaru overheard Dowblade's exclamations. Although he didn't know what Petalil had asked, Dowblade was once again preaching its villain-like ideology of kingdom building. The more Hikaru listened, the stranger it sounded. Actually, a world where Pokémon worked and lived harmoniously already existed. Wasn't that just the Mystery Dungeon world? A parallel world to the Pokémon universe? Oh, the customer's request is hey. Hikaru read the email from a client, but his expression turned strange. Today, I want to discuss the topic of Pokémon liberation. Humans and Pokémon have lived together for so long, with many believing we are indispensable partners to one another. But is that truly the case? Could this belief simply be one-sided wishful thinking on the part of humans? This format looks familiar. Isn't this the same propaganda Plasma Team used? Right, back when Plasma Team was first active in Unova, they weren't seen as an illegal organization yet, but more like a religious group. They're even sending propaganda emails all the way to Sinnoh. That was Hikaru's initial thought, but then he noticed something peculiar in the last section of the email. You are a craftsman? Then do you know about the Light Stone and the Dark Stone? I am Getsis of Plasma Team. I am a man who fights for the true equality between humans and Pokémon. If you know the whereabouts of these two stones, please respond to me. I would be immensely grateful and will offer a generous reward. Let us work together to create a world where all life is equal. Hikaru. Could this be from the Ancient Seeker? No, wait, it must be Mr. Bourgeois. At first, Hikaru thought this might be a new client sent by the Ancient Seeker, but upon further reflection, were there any archaeologists famous in Unova? If anything, the only notable figure in Undella Town was Cynthia. But Cynthia merely had a vacation home there. Given that it was summer, there was a chance Cynthia was in Unova, but if she was, she would never introduce Getsis as a potential client. Besides, Hikaru didn't even know Cynthia personally. So there was only one possibility. It was Mr. Bourgeois. As Plasma Team became more active in Unova, they must have sought out collectors of ancient relics to find the legendary two stones. Naturally, they would ask Bourgeois Meyer, a well-known collector of antiquities. This is a troublesome client. Even though I know where the Light Stone and Dark Stone are, I absolutely can't tell him. Hikaru replied to the email. Are you looking to purchase something? I'm afraid I don't know what stones you're referring to. My apologies. A response came back quickly. I see, my apologies, it was wishful thinking on my part. I have asked many antique collectors, but none of them knew about these two stones. In desperation, I decided to reach out to someone overseas. Since I've disturbed you, please allow me to show my sincerity by making a purchase. Do you offer custom sculptures? Hikaru raised an eyebrow. This guy was unexpectedly polite. Before breaking his mask, Getsis really did put on a convincing act as a righteous man. Of course. What kind of sculpture do you want? Hydreigon. Do you know this Pokémon? I need a large sculpture, not a small one. Of course, no problem. Large sculptures start at 400,000 Poke dollars. Hydreigon was Getsis' ace Pokémon. Perhaps he wanted the sculpture for Plasma Team's propaganda, though Hikaru couldn't guess his exact intentions. However, all of his sculptures contained special effects. Now that he had access to even more ancient stones, there was no need to worry about material shortages. Ah, that won't be a problem. Also, I noticed your shop sells something called the King's Prestige Emblem. From its appearance, it looks different from a normal King's Rock, and its description says it makes Pokémon more obedient. I would like to purchase one. It's not obedience, it's acknowledgement. Hikaru corrected him, already understanding Getsis' intent. He wanted to find the legendary dragon and make it acknowledge either him or his adopted son, N. Of course, N, the so-called king of Plasma Team, was nothing more than a puppet in Getsis' eyes, a tool to control the legendary dragon. At this point in time, Hikaru wasn't sure what state N was in. The price is already listed 200,000 Poke dollars. Hikaru wasn't entirely sure how to price this item. The normal King's Rock's flinch effect wasn't particularly strong since it was mostly an evolution item. But after his enhancements, this one granted plus 20% acknowledgement, presumably effective on all Pokémon. But for someone like Getsis, money was never an issue. He had embezzled an untold fortune through Plasma Team and, unsurprisingly, immediately placed an order. Thank you for your business. Hikaru paused for a moment before adding. A Pokémon that acknowledges you will always acknowledge you. But no matter how many of these items you buy, a Pokémon that does not recognize you never will. Items don't determine everything. What matters most is the bond between a trainer and their Pokémon. So tell me, do you have a true bond with your Pokémon? Or is this for someone else? The answer was already obvious. It is for our king. Getsis replied. He will become the legendary hero, and for that, the legendary dragon must acknowledge him. Do you know the founding legend of Unova? How does one unify a world torn apart by conflict? It is by standing beside the dragon Pokémon, one black and one white Pokémon who appear only before heroes who pursue either truth or ideals. They guided their chosen hero, bestowed knowledge, and bared their fangs at those who threatened their kingdom. The hero and the Pokémon became one, and together, they created Unova. Once again, the hero and the Pokémon shall rise in Unova. Our king and the legendary Pokémon will unite. They will create a new ideal kingdom. This is the reenactment of Unova's founding legend. And I am working tirelessly for this great cause. A world where humans and Pokémon live as equals. Do you think this is the right path? Dowblade suddenly jumped in. Yo! It stared at the computer screen with both eyes. Hikaru explained the message's contents to it, and Dowblade immediately became furious. What kind of low-level ruler thinks they're on the same level as my king? You think having a team makes you special? Yo! Yopo! Hikaru, cancel the order. Let's piss him off. Sure. Here's the continuation of the translation. Business is business. Don't worry, everything he's saying is just lies. Hikaru reassured his two Pokémon. Petalil, however, didn't understand the text on the screen. She didn't know what this whole kingdom-building ideal was about, so she had no reaction at all. Sometimes, too much knowledge is just a burden. Pet. Petalil tilted her head, adorably shaking it in confusion. Not knowing how to read, she remained carefree and innocent. A true hero has already appeared, but the outcome won't be as he claims. All this talk about monarchs and new kings, these are just words used in religious indoctrination to brainwash followers. Some people, due to their weak will, are easily deceived by such propaganda. But then again, those kinds of people were never suited to be Pokémon trainers in the first place. Don't be fooled by the surface-level ideals and speeches. Look at what actions he has actually taken. Didn't you just say earlier? A king isn't acknowledged after becoming one, it is being acknowledged that makes one a king. Hikaru patted Dowblade, and only then did Dowblade feel reassured. That's right. Our king is still superior. I acknowledge your king's will. Chapter 60. As soon as the new order was processed, the computer beeped again. There was no downtime at all. This time, the client was also from Unova. If this keeps up, I'll end up conquering Unova before I even finish establishing myself in Johto. And to think it all started with the ancient seeker. The people of Unova are really well informed. Meanwhile, our Johto residents just, not going outside. This new client seemed like a regular one. Their ID was Volcarona. Volcarona considered a semi-legendary Pokémon in Unova. Wait a second, Volcarona. No way, is this Alder? Haha. Client, hello, my name is Alder. Hikaru. An awkward silence filled the air. Dowblade and Petalil were both confused. What was wrong with this person? Were they harder to deal with than that deceitful liar from earlier? Oh, this is the champion of Unova. Hikaru finally processed the situation and sent a response. What can I help you with? I saw an item in your shop called herbal juice. It seems to enhance a Pokémon's vitality. To be honest, one of my Pokémon may not have much time left. I am searching for a way to heal it. I have asked around and learned that Johto has a secret potion capable of instantly restoring any Pokémon that has lost its energy. However, its effects are said to be extremely potent, and I fear my Pokémon might not withstand it. That's when I found your shop. At first, I was skeptical about the idea of juice enhancing vitality. But then I thought, doesn't the natural world already have miraculous berries capable of restoring health and curing status conditions? Perhaps there is a berry that can save my Pokémon. And since Johto's Shuckle juice is renowned worldwide, I realized I should reach out to you. Hikaru added Alder as a friend, and Alder explained his situation in more detail. As expected, his sick Pokémon was Volcarona. In Pokémon Black and White, Getsis had mocked Alder, saying that he had lost his passion for battling after his longtime partner passed away. This confirmed that Alder's Volcarona hadn't died of old age, but rather an illness. After leaving the Unova League in the care of the Elite Four, Alder wandered across Unova, no longer taking battles seriously. Herbal juice, the kind you need to strengthen vitality, is priced at 50,000 Poke dollars. 50,000? Just 50,000. Alder seemed shocked. But it made sense at that price. This medicine was unbelievably cheap. Almost too cheap for something that could potentially save a life. Hikaru patiently replied. I cannot guarantee its effectiveness, so please try it first. If it doesn't work, I have other medicines that might help. As for the price, medicine that is too expensive loses its purpose as medicine. However, shipping will take some time. I understand. Johto and Unova are far apart, but as long as it arrives in time, I will find a way to keep my Volcarona going. When I was younger, I was too focused on battling, and now my Pokémon has suffered because of it. This is my mistake. Thank you for your help. Hikaru hesitated for a moment, then suddenly thought of rippled water and quickly sent another message. By the way, do you know of a place called the Entree Forest? Entree Forest? I've never heard of it. Alder seemed confused. Hikaru recalled that the Entree Forest could only be accessed using Professor Burnett's Sea-Gear technology. Before that invention, the forest would have seemed like a normal part of Unova. It should be somewhere in the central Unova region. Oh. You mean the Central Forest? I know that place. It's said that people experience mysterious dreams there. A researcher has been studying it for some time and has made some progress. Do you need help with something there? Yes, I believe a certain Pokémon may appear in that forest. I'm searching for it. It looks like this. Hikaru sent a description. Alder quickly replied. I see. I'll keep an eye out for that Pokémon. If it's connected to the dreamlike forest, the researcher studying it might know something. With that, Alder stopped sending messages. Now, he had been entrusted with two important tasks: finding the Entree Forest and saving Volcarona. Hikaru let out a deep breath. If Volcarona actually survives, then even if Getsis manages to gain the recognition of a legendary dragon, so what? People call Alder the weakest champion because he lost his main Pokémon, but if his old Volcarona were still alive, things might have been different. Alder actually had two Volcarona. After the older one passed away, he became discouraged and stopped battling seriously. This could be a huge shift in the timeline. I hope my herbal juice works. As for Johto's secret potion, he must be referring to the ancient medicine from Kianwood City. I should make time to visit that place and buy a sample. If I analyze it, I might be able to recreate an even better version. The Kianwood Pharmacy was an old establishment and didn't sell its products online. The only way to obtain the secret potion was to travel there personally. In the games, the secret potion was powerful enough to cure the Seduc's chronic headaches, a truly miraculous remedy. But even the most effective medicine could only extend life, not create it. If a Pokémon had strong vitality, it would recover fully after treatment. However, if it was already frail and suffering from hidden ailments, the secret potion's potency might actually worsen its condition. Hikaru had just finished another order and was preparing to make some glass containers when the computer beeped for the third time. What is this, a triple order streak? Your carving skills are quite impressive. This old man was recommended to you. Do you take custom sculpture requests? This time, it was a request for a gym statue, not an individual sculpture like Getsy's order. Hikaru focused. What kind of statue would you like? Haha, your sculptures are incredibly lifelike. They feel like relics from an ancient era. This old man wants to commission statues of a Pokémon called Urshifu. Have you heard of it? If not, don't worry. I have pictures, just follow these poses. Urshifu? Wait, recommended by someone, and referring to himself as an old man? Could this be Mustard from the Isle of Armor? But I don't recall his dojo having statues. In Pokémon Sword and Shield, Mustard was a former Galar champion who lived on the Isle of Armor. His son, Hyde, once mentioned that Mr. Iron had visited the island years ago to craft special Pokeballs for Mustard. That was when Hyde saw Iron's craftsmanship and attempted to replicate it using a machine. When the player creates an apricorn Pokeball, Hyde admits that he had spent years trying to recreate the technique but could never fully replicate Mr. Iron's skills. In short, Mr. Iron was the ultimate artisan, crafting Pokeballs by hand even in an era dominated by machines. As for Mustard, he was an avid gamer. It made sense that he'd try online shopping. However, Mr. Iron was too old-fashioned for the internet, and all his online affairs were handled by his granddaughter, Chihiro. Hikaru thought for a moment before checking the photos. As expected, Single Strike Urshifu and Rapid Strike Urshifu. 2 statues for the dojo entrance. In Sword and Shield, the dojo entrance looked oddly empty. Statues would make it feel much grander. Large statues range from 200,000 to 400,000 Poke dollars each. 2 would cost between 400,000 and 800,000. Is that acceptable? 400,000 is fine. The reply came quickly. I trust your craftsmanship. The level of detail in your work is simply divine. I can't wait to see the finished statues. Thank you for your trust. I won't disappoint you. Hikaru replied. However, why did this person add LU at the end of every sentence? Either way, today had been very profitable. But just as the messages stopped, the inbox beeped again, this time, from Mr. Iron. And another email. If possible, I'd like to visit your shop soon. I'm looking to purchase rare stones. Steven Stone.
Thanks for listening.